Awards. 25.
As the boss, I expect only the best for my office. Air conditioning, super comfortable seating, digital radio, and rear parking sensors. From dealing with deliveries to balancing the books, my new Citroën van, my office on the move. Award-winning Citroën vans. Like you, they do it all. With £500 off during the February van event. Citroën. £500 discount inclusive of VAT on qualifying relay, dispatch and Berlingo vans ordered from 1st to 29th of February and registered by the 31st of March. Business users only. Full T's and C's at citroen.co.uk.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 6:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We're just about 3 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour, beginning with the latest on the coronavirus outbreak. The death toll in China is nearing 500, with the number of confirmed cases passing 24,000. The illness remains deadly serious, though there are signs a worst-case scenario might be averted. We get more from Bloomberg's Stephen Engel in Hong Kong.
The World Health Organization came out and said the spread of this virus can be minimal and slow if the outbreak is fought at the source. And the source is Wuhan and Hubei province. The mortality rate of this also is about 2% compared to the confirmed cases. 10% was the mortality rate for SARS.
Well, there are also unconfirmed reports adding to optimism on the virus. The latest comes from Sky News, which says a scientist in the UK plans to start testing a vaccine on animals as soon as next week. U.S. futures and European stocks moved higher following that news, though we should stress this and other reports on a treatment are, so far, unconfirmed reports.
Turning to corporate news now, shares of Disney are gaining as the company's crusade to become a streaming giant gets off to a good start. For more, we're joined live by Bloomberg's John Tucker. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Karen. Subscribers to the new Disney Plus service have soared past 28 million. Way more than analyst estimates, but the costs associated with the new business, like spending $71 billion to purchase entertainment assets from Fox, led to a profit decline in the quarter. Still, the earnings and sales, they did beat estimates. Right now, shares of Disney up about 0.5% in early trading. John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Well, meanwhile, John, some other news we're following this morning on earnings. Shares of Ford are down more than 8%. The automaker projected lower than estimated profit for this year after ending 2019 with a quarterly net loss.
Shares of Snap are down almost 8% in early trading. The photo-sharing app reporting quarterly sales that missed estimates.
Plantronic shares are plunging more than 30%. The company, which designs communications headsets, issued a revenue forecast below estimates.
And on the economic front, the euro area's private sector expanded at a faster than anticipated pace in January. A composite purchasing managers index rose to 51.3. That's the highest level since August. Now let's get you up to date on how stocks are faring. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 29 points. Dow futures up 267. NASDAQ futures up 95. The 10-year Treasury down 10/30 seconds. Yield 1.63%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is up 2.9%, up $1.43 at $51.04 a barrel, and COMEX gold is little changed at $15.5460 an ounce. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
Thanks, Karen. It's 6:33 on Wall Street, and this news update is brought to you by Land Rover. The Only Adventure sales event is happening now until March 31st. Visit your tri-state area Land Rover retailer for details on the new Discovery Sport. Land Rover, above and beyond. Here's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Nathan. President Donald Trump stood before a Congress and nation sharply divided by impeachment and used his State of the Union address last night to extol a great American comeback on his watch. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has more.
It began with his universal message.
The state of our union is stronger than ever before.
And he says he can report very, very favorably.
Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence is surging, and our country is thriving and highly respected again.
He says the best economy ever, lowest unemployment, a blue-collar boom. The Democratic reply given by Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who said the current economy benefits people in the stock market, but not middle-class people who have to wonder about how much money they will have at the end of the month. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
The Iowa Democratic Party has released additional results of its kickoff presidential caucus after a long day of delay. With 71% of precincts reporting, Pete Buttigieg maintains his lead with 26% of the vote. Bernie Sanders is second with 25%. Elizabeth Warren comes in third with 18%. Joe Biden is fourth with 15%. And Amy Klobuchar claimed 12% of the vote. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, Senator Sanders responded to President Trump's State of the Union address.
He continued, "We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions," end quote. Really? How gullible do you think the American people are?
The Senate will vote today in President Trump's impeachment trial. The vote for acquittal will likely be along party lines. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor yesterday.
It's hard to believe that House Democrats ever really thought this reckless and precedent-breaking process would yield 67 votes to cross the Rubicon.
A bipartisan group of prominent U.S. lawmakers has nominated Hong Kong's pro-democracy protesters for the Nobel Peace Prize, a move that could anger China. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. Just before 6:36 on Wall Street, it's time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, the deal for Steve Cohen to become the majority owner of the Mets was not going to kick in for 5 years, but now doesn't look as if it's going to happen at all. Neither side talking due to non-disclosure agreements, but reportedly talks broke off due to the Wilpon family's desire to make late changes, forcing Cohen to walk away. Mets fans were excited about the prospect of Cohen, whose net worth is over $9 billion, taking over and being more than willing to spend on free agents as the Wilpons have been. Meanwhile, a blockbuster baseball trade between the two teams who met in the 2018 World Series. The Red Sox have sent Mookie Betts, the AL MVP that season, only 27 years old, but a free agent to be after this season, to the Dodgers, and pitcher David Price, who's owed $96 million over the next 3 years, going to L.A. as well. Huge shakeup in Boston, where they also still need to hire a new manager. The Knicks need to hire a new team president. Steve Mills suddenly fired by owner James Dolan. Odd timing with the NBA trade deadline tomorrow. Mills served 2 stints with the Knicks. The first one began back in 1999. There was a 4-team, 12-player NBA trade. Houston sent center Clint Capella to Atlanta. The Islanders beat Dallas 4-3 and an Anthony Beauvillier goal in overtime. Barry Trotz's team trailed with 4 minutes left.
The bench is great. They believe that the game's not over until that final buzzer goes. So that's something that hopefully we established last year, and it's coming into play now.
Devils lost in Montreal 5-4 in a shootout. Rutgers lost at 9th-ranked Maryland 56-51. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update from John Stashower. Nathan?
All right, thank you, John. With Ford's quarterly results in the books, General Motors is the next to report. We get earnings from the automaker this morning, and here with a preview is Bloomberg's Larry Kofsky.
Expectations are already low for the automaker after it reported lackluster fourth-quarter sales last month. Analysts have significantly cut their earnings estimates in recent months and are now expecting a break-even quarter. 6 months ago, they were forecasting a profit of $1.88 per share. Of greater interest to Wall Street will be GM's forecast for 2020, as well as updates on its China business and its plan for consolidation. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Larry, thank you. It's 6:38 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
The U.S. could actually use more Nigerian immigrants. I'm Justin Fox, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. Last week, the Trump administration slapped a new immigration ban on 6 countries, saying they had failed to comply with demands for better information sharing about visa applicants. One of them was Nigeria, the source in recent years of a substantial flow of immigrants to the U.S. These Nigerian Americans are doing great. They're more likely to have jobs than the rest of us, and almost twice as likely to have college degrees. In fact, they score in the top 10 in both measures among all ancestries in the U.S. One would be hard-pressed to find a group of newcomers who have integrated more quickly and successfully into the American mainstream. The administration may have good reason to be frustrated with the Nigerian government, but seriously, let's get this fixed. We need more Nigerians over here, not an immigration ban. I'm Justin Fox. For more opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
You can hear Bloomberg Opinion commentaries every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. It's 6:39 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Green Report. Here's Bob Moon.
It's a fresh sign that world leaders are increasingly feeling the heat from global warming. While Britain has pledged to reduce its net greenhouse gas emissions to zero by 2050, Prime Minister Boris Johnson keeps hearing that's not fast enough.
As a country, as a society, as a planet, as a species, we must now act.
Johnson just announced plans to speed up his country's response, moving a ban on the sale of new gas and diesel cars up to just 15 years from now to 2035, 5 years earlier than its previous target. The new target is one of the world's more ambitious. The ban will also include hybrid vehicles. Several countries, including France, plan to stop by 2040. Norway, one of the most aggressive early adopters of electric cars, has a 2025 goal, though it's not a requirement. Johnson made his announcement as he kicked off a year-long build-up to the United Nations Climate Summit, COP26, scheduled to be held in Glasgow, Scotland in November. That's the Bloomberg Green Business Report. I'm Bob Moon.
All right, Bob, thank you. We got green on the screen this morning. S&P futures up almost 25 points right now. Dow futures up 230 points. NASDAQ futures higher by 81 points. 10-year down 7/30 seconds. Yield up to 1.62%. 2-year Treasury yield 1.42%. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
This
keys, check. Phone, check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
Winter joggers of London. It's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
More than 5,300 people are being quarantined on 2 cruise ships off Hong Kong and Japan amid concerns passengers and crew were inadvertently exposed to the Wuhan coronavirus. President Trump vowing action on the virus in last night's State of the Union address.
We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak in China. My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat.
China reporting 490 deaths this morning and 24,324 cases of infection. The latest vote totals from Monday's Democratic caucuses in Iowa, with 71% of the vote in counted now. Pete Buttigieg still leads Bernie Sanders by a slim margin in delegates, 26.8% to 25.2%, followed by Elizabeth Warren and then Joe Biden. Stock futures are following yesterday's big gains on Wall Street. NASDAQ futures up almost 1% overnight. I'm Michael Toscano.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 6:47 on Wall Street. Futures are higher this morning. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures are adding to yesterday's gains, with Dow futures up 236 points. S&P's gained 26, while NASDAQ futures climbed by 83. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.62%. Gold is up 2. And Shanghai gained 1.3% overnight. Well, European markets are also trading higher, led by gains in France and Germany. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:15, ADP employment change. At 8:30, trade balance. At 9:45, market U.S. services PMI. And at 10 o'clock, the ISM non-manufacturing index. After the bell last night, Disney Q1 Disney Plus subscribers beat estimates, and Chipotle comp sales also beat estimates. Regarding earnings this morning, Merck is just hitting now. Q4 adjusted EPS $1.16, beating estimates of $1.15 on sales of $11.9 billion. They're also spinning off its women's health unit. In deal news, the Intercontinental Exchange says it's not in talks with eBay. And in other news, Chipotle's price target raised to $1,000 over at Bernstein. Wrapping things up, Centene was raised to overweight over at J.P. Morgan. Live from the First Word breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And here live breaking news over your Bloomberg. Type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, the Great American Comeback was the theme of President Trump's State of the Union address last night. The partisan discord was vivid. The president snubbed House Speaker Pelosi for a handshake, and then Pelosi ripped up her copy of Trump's speech as he ended his address. A final vote that will likely acquit the president will be held this afternoon in his impeachment trial. In baseball, the Red Sox have parted with Mookie Betts and David Price by sending them to the Dodgers in a blockbuster deal. Hedge fund billionaire Steve Cohen is ending talks to buy the New York Mets. That's according to the New York Post. In the NHL, the Islanders won in overtime. The Devils lost in the shootout. The Bruins and Capitals won. In the NBA, the Knicks have dismissed Steve Mills as team president. Hundreds of thousands are expected in downtown Kansas City today as the Chiefs bring home a Super Bowl trophy for the first time in 50 years. Finally, from daybreak on the Bloomberg, people working some of the longest days in world equity markets would like them to be shorter. A Bloomberg News survey showed across Europe, 74% of finance professionals, including traders, analysts, and fund managers, said they favor reducing the current 8.5-hour stock market day. Nathan, it exceeds the U.S. by 2 hours.
Well, that's true, but just about anyone who's listening who doesn't work on Wall Street is thinking, well, 8.5-hour day isn't so bad.
Yeah, that's true. There's more money to be made.
A lot of people work an 8.5-hour day.
Yes, I know a couple right now.
I think I can see a few.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios, where it's 6:50 on Wall Street. Time to check what's going on in D.C., where some of the top stories include the Senate headed toward an expected acquittal vote in President Trump's impeachment trial this afternoon. Pete Buttigieg holding a lead in the still delayed Iowa caucus results, and a bipartisan group of lawmakers nominating the Hong Kong protesters for the Nobel Peace Prize. Also making news, a deeply partisan display at President Trump's State of the Union address. For more, we bring in Bloomberg U.S. politics editor Kathleen Hunter. And I think, Kate, it's fair to say last night's speech before the joint session of Congress will be remembered as much for what happened behind the president for anything he himself said.
Absolutely. And I think that the drama that unfolded between the president and the Speaker of the House has been long coming, given the impeachment inquiry that the Speaker launched back in September. But certainly we saw that erupt into full view last night when the president, upon taking the dais, went to shake the Speaker's hand the Speaker went to shake the president's hand, right, and the president essentially turned away. And then at the end of the speech, the Speaker very dramatically ripped up in full view of the cameras the pages of the president's speech.
Yeah, quite literally ripping up the script, as we often say here. What does this say about what the Congress and the president can actually get done? I mean, this really is all about setting up the political battle lines going forward, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that was pretty clear from the content of the president's speech. This is not uncommon for a president to use the State of the Union to tout his accomplishments, particularly in an election year. But I think that this particular speech had much more of a campaign tone about it, more of a campaign rally tone about it, both in terms of how the president used his rhetoric, his attacks on Democrats, on their on their immigration policy, that sort of thing, and also, the extent to which we saw the Democrats essentially staying glued to their seats. It's not uncommon during State of the Unions to have the party of the president be clapping and while the other side of the chamber sits, but that was particularly stark this time around.
This was really all about reframing the president's economic record in a lot of ways as well, wasn't it? Touting the blue-collar boom, as he likes to call it. Does that provide anything of an opening for Democrats to sort of counterbalance what he has to say, the story he has to tell about this economy?
Well, certainly Democrats have been arguing from the beginning of Trump's term that Trump's policies, looking at everything from his trade policies to going back to early in his term, the tax cuts that he passed, actually increase inequality, that they only help the wealthy, that they don't actually help the middle class, the blue-collar workers that Trump is touting that they do help. And so I think that does create a bit of an opening for Democrats to try to flip the script and say that, Trump has actually been damaging to these types of voters. But I think that, Trump certainly has a big bully pulpit in order to make his argument, and we're seeing that, on display last night.
Let's turn to the Democratic presidential race because, we're going to see as that starts to coalesce here, the nominee who's going to be trying to put forward a counterbalancing message, and we're still waiting for full results to come out from Iowa. I wonder if that raises questions about the validity of whatever vote comes out of this.
I think it's hard to imagine a scenario given all the attention that's been given over the last 4 years to voting irregularities, even though we don't think this was any kind of a hack or foreign influence or that sort of thing. There's certainly the integrity of voting results is something that's very much on Americans' mind right now. And so I think it's hard to imagine a scenario in which, when these results come in that they don't feel at least a bit tainted, even if they're not. And certainly it raises questions going forward about whether there's going to be similar problems in subsequent states. We have the New Hampshire primary up next on Tuesday. And so I think people will be watching that very closely. I imagine folks in New Hampshire, on the Democratic side in particular, are going to be, state election officials working overtime to make sure things go smoothly there.
And as far as the results we have with something like 70% of the precincts reporting, we had been talking before the voting began that it was shaping up to be a two-person race, but the folks on top aren't quite the two persons that many pundits were expecting.
Yeah, Pete Buttigieg ends up, at least so far, obviously, as you say, only some of the results are in, but, a lot of what Iowa is the narrative coming out of Iowa in the days between Iowa and New Hampshire. And so, even if he ends up somehow with the final results not being in the lead, Pete Buttigieg is certainly benefiting now from being at the top with the partial results. And the fact that Joe Biden is trailing and in fourth place certainly, is a major blow potentially to his campaign and sets up the question of whether or not the, moderate versus progressive race that many people saw coming might end up being between Sanders and Buttigieg and not between Warren and Biden, as some people had originally envisioned.
Yeah, although it will be interesting, as you say, as we head into the New Hampshire primary. Elizabeth Warren, to some extent, there could be a different dynamic at play there, she being a New Englander. And I would imagine now that Joe Biden, as you say, is really hoping for some better results next week.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part for Biden is that, the New Hampshire primary has long been seen as potentially a two-way race between Sanders, who's from neighboring Vermont, and Warren, who is from neighboring Massachusetts. Those are, they're both quite liberal Democrats, and, that's a liberal area of the country. And so it's potentially very problematic for Biden if he finishes a distant third or not even third in New Hampshire.
Bloomberg U.S. politics editor Kathleen Hunter, thank you, as always. Karen?
Nathan, thank you. It is 6:56 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Small Business Report, and here's John Tucker. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Karen. Small businesses in the U.S. still having a tough time finding workers, and to compete for the right hire, businesses are finally paying up. Data from the payroll services company Paychex shows weekly earnings growth improving for the 13th straight month, and it's not just at the lower end where minimum wages were raised.
we've been seeing for a very long time wages growing very sharply in that first quintile, the lower wage segment, but we're seeing it across the board now. We're seeing it in our fourth and fifth quintiles, so the higher wages, supervisory and managers are also seeing nice wage increases too. So it is across the board.
That's Frank Fiorell, Vice President of Paychex. Their data showed New York, California, and Tennessee lead wage growth among the states. Leisure and hospitality leads hourly earnings growth among industry sectors, with manufacturing a distant second. I'm John Tucker, and that's your Bloomberg Small Business Report. Karen.
All right, John, thank you. And futures are climbing this morning. Again, we got some earnings from Merck this morning. Its forecast for 2020, the midpoint beating analyst estimates. And we continue to watch shares of Ford this morning. They're down more than 8%. They're among the most active stocks being traded in the pre-market. The automaker projecting lower than expected profit for this year and reporting that 2019 will end with a quarterly net loss. Futures on the rise. S&P futures up 24 points. Dow futures up 219. Bloomberg Surveillance straight ahead with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrow, and Lisa Abramowitz. And for Nathan Hager, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
Influential conversations.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Sign up to Walk All Over Cancer with Cancer Research UK. Walk 10,000 steps every day in March and help raise money for life-saving research.
Are you ready, Boots?
Know any friends keen on walks?
Start walking.
Use the 10,000 Steps a Day Challenge to explore London, get fit and help beat cancer. Come on, search Walk All Over Cancer and sign up now.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Which segments of Alphabet's business are most likely to come under scrutiny?
Get all the pieces.
They're getting mixed signals from governments.
He's failed to gain traction.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we're still seeing people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty. These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
From New York City, for our audience worldwide, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, global equity markets building on this week's big gains. China uncertainty pushing Apple's production partner to cut its outlook. And Pete Buttigieg, leading Democrats in Iowa, delayed results crawling in. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, hello Wednesday. Here is your Wednesday morning price action. Equity futures just off session highs, up 21 points on the S&P, positive 0.6%. Equities up, treasuries down, yields higher by 2 basis points to 162 on 10s, on 2s, 142. And in foreign exchange, to give you a feel of G10 this morning, your currency market worldwide shaping up as follows. For euro dollar, this is what we look like. Let me get it up for you on my terminal. Euro dollar right now, 110.23, just slightly negative, a slightly weaker euro on the morning, Tom.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's correlated. It's up. There's no question about that. Futures up 25 earlier. Maybe. I actually did the math math. This is 2-3 hours ago, where we've made back 98% of the beginning of the Chinese flu. And, maybe I'm wrong 95%, but we're almost round trip on the tangible angst of just a few days ago.
Where's the optimism coming from? That's what I'm trying to get my hands around this morning. Hon Hai Precision, known to many of you, I'm sure, as Foxconn, the big manufacturing partner of Apple, cutting its outlook on what's happening in China.
To me, the headline I had was Cathay Pacific. They do months to homogenize it. They want 122 days of unpaid leave for, I think, the whole company, the staff.
Slashing 90% of flights to China over the next 2 months.
Where are we now on the guesstimate of what the Fed will do? Because to me, the market lift is the gaming of 1 and 2 rate cuts. Am I wrong on that?
Look, a couple of things. Have we seen a material reassessment of the outlook of the Federal Reserve? I'm not sure. It's up to them to define that, but that's certainly the hurdle they've set for this market. The other thing, Lisa Abramowitz, that we've got to talk about, just the rumour mill out there at the moment that's supporting equities overnight. Perhaps we're inching closer to a vaccine. It's been report after report, rumour after rumour.
Yeah, well, Chinese researchers applying for a national patent on a Gilead vaccine, and people are worried about just getting on top of and getting profits from the vaccine once it comes out. This is part of it. I think the other part, though, there was some talk about China reducing some of the restrictions on shadow banking overnight, and there's a lot of focus on what kind of stimulus China is going to inject in order to keep propping up markets.
Equity futures looking good this morning, up 0.7%. Steve Eisman coming into the studio this morning, and the first thing he says to me, I've got a joke. It's about CEOs. Will you let me tell it? And I'm like, should we do this at the top of the conversation? Should we do this? It's clean and it's good. So I'm going to let Steve Eisman do his joke. Eisman Group, Neuberger Berman, Senior Portfolio Manager. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
I didn't know you were a comedian as well, so let's talk about it. Give us the joke off the top. What is it?
All right, so the joke is guy becomes the CEO of a company, reports to work on the first day, has lunch with the old CEO, and the old CEO says, I got a gift for you. Gives him a box, and in the box he opens it, there's 3 envelopes, and they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. And he says, don't open them until you have your first crisis, then open up the first envelope. So he says, okay, puts the box in a drawer. 3 years go by, he's got his first crisis, doesn't know what to do. He remembers the envelope. So he opens up the first envelope, he reads it, and it says, blame your predecessor. And he says, genius. So he does it, and crisis averted. Believe me, we've all seen this.
Yeah.
And then 2 more years go by, there's another crisis, he remembers the envelope. So he opens up the second envelope, and it says, take a huge restructuring charge. And he goes, genius. And he takes a huge restructuring charge, and crisis averted, and another 3 years go by, doesn't know what to do because it's another crisis. So he opens up the third envelope, and it says, prepare 3 envelopes.
That is fantastic.
That is phenomenal.
Love that.
All right, so who are you trolling?
That's like, yeah, I was going to say.
Love that.
It's like, can we cut to the chase? Yeah. Which of your lungs right now is the analog to?
Steve, you've got to answer that.
It's good because it really strikes close to home. How many times have you seen that?
Well, we're all wondering, as Lisa points out, who you're talking about. Which company we're focused on
that I'm not going to say.
Well, okay, but you are.
Although I will say that I saw at Neuberger, I saw a CEO of a company that I'm sure, and I won't mention it because it's not fair.
It's okay.
And as I was thinking, and as the CEO was presenting, and it wasn't a great presentation, I'm thinking this guy could really use the 3 envelopes.
Are we talking Elon Musk? And which envelope is he in?
Let's talk about Elon Musk, shall we? Tesla, high-profile short for many people. Steve, it's a short that you had and no longer have. How are you thinking about the company at the moment? What made you cover the short, other than just getting your face ripped off, I imagine, if you were
getting your face ripped off
sort
of keeps you up at night.
Of course.
Everybody has a threshold of pain. Mine's pretty high. But when a stock starts to go crazy it started to go crazy because the deliveries were better than expected. They're certainly better than I expected. But you start to read things about how, in 2032, the company will make, $3,000 per share or whatever. There's no way to argue against that because it's 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So, when the narrative of stock starts to become like that, the best thing to do is at least to walk away.
Steve, anyone that's familiar with your work knows how much homework you do, how well thought out every single position is. This isn't just done on a whim. But are there lessons to be learned when there is a popular short like the Tesla short? For someone like yourself, is that a red flag? Is that something you want to get involved in? Is that something you walk away from at the moment and think,
well, I'm not afraid of getting involved with shorts that are heavily shorted. I don't like to construct an entire short portfolio of heavily shorted stocks, but if I really believe in something, I'll get involved with it. But you have to be careful.
So you were made famous by The Big Short, right? But as the era of shorting kind of ended, and I'm wondering because another of your shorts, Zillow, back in October, has surged, more than 60% since then. And a lot of people are saying perhaps the fundamentals are getting disconnected from the market action, or it's very hard.
It's funny about Zillow. I'm still short Zillow. What's very strange about that short is that when they report third quarter numbers, if you looked at it carefully, the fundamentals actually deteriorated. And yet the narrative was positive. So that does sometimes make a stock difficult.
But Lisa raises a good point here, Steve.
Yeah.
Just how much the price action has become divorced from the fundamentals. As you point out, you look at the numbers coming out of Zillow and it justifies in your mind a short, but then the price action is just doing something completely different.
I'm willing to stick with something if I think the fundamentals are actually deteriorating or fundamentally deteriorating. The problem with the Tesla short was the fundamentals started to improve. Then all you are left with is a valuation short. And one rule I have is I never short a stock just because of valuation. Because in an age of both of disruption and free money, that's a recipe for disaster.
Well, that's where I want to go. I mean, the cardinal rule of short says you short a lousy company and a lousy group and a lousy market. That's pretty easy to do. Right now, you've got a central bank strategy massively pushing against a short belief. Does long short just walk away from short until Chairman Powell changes his tune?
I still think you can be long short. I think you have to have a very long bias right now, which I do. I think you can be selectively short individual names. Like, for example, I'm short a stock called Adtalem, which is Adtalem. It's a for-profit education company. It used to be called DeVry.
Oh, yes.
But they sold DeVry, the actual part of the company called DeVry, for $1. Plus assumption of debt, which tells you how much
I got
DeVry was worth.
my diploma on the wall from DeVry.
but what's left is a nursing school and a medical school. Right. I have no ethical issues about what DeVry is doing, and the biggest part of the company is nursing. And the short thesis very simply is that over the last couple of years, there's been new entrants of nonprofit schools that are doing exactly the same thing as DeVry for half the price.
Two other names that come to mind regarding your positioning: HSBC, Standard Chartered.
Yes.
What are things looking like right now for you?
I'm still short them.
Are we connecting those shorts more to China than we are to Brexit? How are you thinking
this
about
has got nothing to do with Brexit.
Nothing to do
Zero.
with Brexit.
It's that HSBC is about, off the top of my head, 30% Hong Kong. Standard Chartered is like 20% Hong Kong. And Hong Kong's in a recession, and so they'll have credit issues, period.
Have you ever been less short stocks, though? I mean, you're talking about specific names, but you said, you've got a very long bias.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, the sort of longs to short ratio, the sort of overall
This is about as long as I get.
Okay.
I'm about 65% net long right now.
And that's as long as you get?
That's about as long as I can go.
Okay. And how long have you been the longest you can go?
Oh, late last year.
What's the biggest mistake rookies make shorting? There's a lot of people out there, they don't believe in the Fed strategy. They believe the Fed's going to make... John, are we modeling 1 or 2 rate cuts right now?
1 to 2.
1 to 2. Okay, fine. Someday that's going to end. And everybody's going to want to go, okay, I'm going to get back on the short bandwagon. What's the rookie mistake in shorting?
I think the mistake people make is that because they think that it's wrong for the Fed to have a free money policy, therefore they should short stocks. It's because you think the Fed's wrong. So what? They're the Fed.
That's something
you could think what you want.
Struggled with, but so many people have struggled with this.
Well, I've struggled
Marty
with it
Zweig
too at
didn't
times.
struggle with this. Marty Zweig, don't fight the Fed.
Well, but does that sort of change the equation for specific names too?
Well, what you would need if you were going to fight the Fed, and look, I did fight the Fed in 2007 and 8.
And won.
But what you had then was deteriorating credit. So if you're going to fight the Fed, you need deteriorating credit quality. The problem is that credit quality in the United States is perfect. There's no problems anywhere.
Which is why you like the U.S. banks.
One reason. But I only like the large banks. I think investing in anything outside of the large banks, with very few exceptions, is a waste of time because they can't spend the money on technology.
Steve Eisen, thank you so much.
Steve, thanks.
Lots to talk
Good to
about.
see you, Steve.
From his appearances with Bloomberg Surveillance today, I'm sure we'll write a whole bunch up.
We should cut that joke at the top.
I was about to say.
And replay it a few times.
Yeah, I mean,
it was good. I like that tweet. I did like that.
We should play it when we talk about certain companies and what they're doing.
You could play that joke for years.
We will.
I think
it's
that's
perfect.
Happen.
When are you going to tell us about which company you were talking about?
Come on.
No, I won't do it.
Steve Eisen.
Steve's walking out of the studio.
Literally walking out of the studio.
Right now with the news, Steve. Right now with the news in New York City, here's Steve Eisman.
Thank you, Tom, Lisa, John. The tone is set even before a word was spoken between the president and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. President Trump snubbed Pelosi's handshake, and then Pelosi's jaw dropped when the president spoke against the state of California.
The state of California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal, illegal immigrants. A very terrible sanctuary with catastrophic results.
When Trump wrapped up, Pelosi tore up the president's speech and tossed it aside. When asked why, Pelosi said because it was a manifesto of mistruths. Michigan's governor spoke on behalf of Democrats in their response to the president's speech. While President Trump spoke about a soaring stock market and record low unemployment, Governor Gretchen Whitmer said with stagnant wage growth in several states, many American workers are still hurting.
The American economy needs to be a different kind of strong. Strong for the science teacher spending her own money to buy supplies for her classroom. Strong for the single mom picking up extra hours so she can afford her daughter's soccer cleats. Strong for the small business owner who has to make payroll at the end of the month.
We have more details on the vote count in the Iowa caucuses, with 71% of precincts reporting. Pete Buttigieg maintains his lead with 26% of the vote. Bernie Sanders is second with 25%. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Mike Labarre. This is Bloomberg. Lisa, John, Tom.
Michael, thanks so much. Futures up 23, down futures 209, VIX under 16. That's a big deal. 15.74. Yields move higher. 1.43. 2-year, 1.63. 10-year, 30-year bond. Wow. $1.99 the other day for a cup of coffee, 2.10%. They're going to play Shakira? No, definitely.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Influential. Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a of Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, 7:17 on Wall Street. And Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Let's get a check of the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. President Trump gave a stump speech as part of his State of the Union address. His remarks talked up the economy after turning his back on Nancy Pelosi's outstretched hand. In turn, she ripped up her copy of his speech. Pete Buttigieg maintains his lead in the Iowa caucuses after a second round of results was released. Bernie Sanders remains a close second. The coronavirus death toll continues to climb as confirmed cases near 25,000. Meantime, Hong Kong is imposing new curbs on border crossings with mainland China. And Disney Plus got off to a good start. Subscribers surged to past 28 million, beating estimates. The company also warned park closures in Shanghai and Hong Kong may hit profit. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
Hannah, thank you. S&P futures up 25 points. Dow futures up 226. NASDAQ futures up 86. The DAX in Germany's up 1.25%. 10-year Treasury down 10/30 seconds. Yield 1.63%. And the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is up 2.5% or $1.22 at $50.84 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.1% of $1.50 at $15.57 an ounce. The euro 1.1020 against the dollar. The yen 109.66. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. Thanks for that data check, which is decidedly risk on, too, 3 days in a row as well. 5 things you need to know. And, you know, John, within talking to Mr. Eisman this morning, the central tendency of his belief is he literally throws in the intellectual towel on central banks. And he just says they got the spigot on and that's all there is to it.
Don't fight the Fed, but with a key caveat. There's a big asterisk next to that. At some point, the Federal Reserve will be easing, the ECB will be easing, but credit spreads will still be going wider. And when that happens, that's the time to worry. That's the time you can fight the Fed. And to Steve Eisman's point,
do we see it before the real yield?
We don't see it right now, do we, Lisa?
Although you are seeing it with specific credits, right? I mean, you are seeing some sort of discretion when it comes to investments and things falling out of bed or getting rewarded. I mean, I'm looking, for example, at Ford bonds today dropping substantially, and not to distress levels, but people definitely responding to the fact that they missed estimates on every level and are now being compared to Elon Musk, not exactly in a positive way.
But remember, right now, futures 29,017, Dow S&P futures back above 3,300. This market doesn't want to go down.
Yeah, I went for lunch with someone yesterday. I won't reveal who.
You had lunch?
They turned around to me and they
me?
basically said they've been bullish through the whole bull market, and I thought it was really interesting. He said, look, the one thing that people worry about a lot is that if you de-risk, do you miss out on the opportunity to re-risk? At what point do you get back into the market if this thing starts to rip? That's the fear of missing out. When this starts to inflect the other way, a lot of people start to chase it pretty quickly.
This is ancient research. Major hat tip to Mr. Kirby and Capital Guardian Trust American Funds of years ago. John, they did great research on this, and it's hugely asymmetric. It's not getting out. It's the getting back in.
But here's the problem. It's this market, it's not easy to cast this with just sort of a euphoric brush. And I think that it's important to keep saying this. This is one reason why people actually have conviction about the overall market, with Steve Eisman saying that he was the most long that he gets, 65% of his portfolio, because you are seeing certain areas, oil companies, shale companies, increasingly going bankrupt. You're seeing, an increasing amount of discretion. Again, I think that's important. I think it's important to keep highlighting.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, my good friend Brian Sullivan over on the Death Star mentioning Canaccord Genuity to hold or sell or something on Tesla. I mean, we're down $30, John. What do I do? We're down 2.7%.
Canaccord downgraded the stock overnight, and I think Canaccord's an interesting example of the South Side at the moment. Here's a company on the South Side, an analyst that at the start of the year put the price target up to 550, then a month later had to go to 750. We've blasted through all these levels, and what's interesting for me for Tesla, say, versus Apple, the Apple analysts are still chasing a move. The Tesla analysts now are looking at the situation and saying, you know what, I'm taking that buy down to neutral.
Or are there, to be honest, their general counsel's walking in the office and going, about that buy on Tesla.
Well, it's true.
I mean, that's the reality.
You look at where the price target is. If it's gone through your target, how have you still got to buy when we're at 950 and you're down at 750 from a week, 2 weeks ago?
With great respect for losing money, and trust me, folks, I've got a litany of losing monies. There's a point where you say, I've never seen this before, and that's where we.
That's how I felt yesterday. Lost for words.
Faith-based.
Can we go to China? I mean, Lisa, what's your reading on China this morning? I mean, I see supply. I mean, what hit me was Cathay Pacific out into June. But what are your thoughts?
Not just that, but Nike and Adidas both coming out and saying that the coronavirus will hurt business in China, talking about supply disruptions. There's an estimate that 1.7 million vehicles will not be built in the near term because of parts being disrupted. Wuhan was a major parts supplier in China for the global auto market.
Part of the Canaccord downgrade connected to the story you're telling right now.
Yeah, and it's not, and Tesla also, could potentially be affected. They've said this, and frankly, one of the big great hopes within Tesla is the battery, the electric battery, and that's being produced in China right now at a time when there are supply disruptions.
I did the video. I resent out the video from the New York Times. It was like something out of a movie, on Amazon Prime, of an abandoned Wuhan. They did the drone thing. I mean, this is not 2 weeks. In the last 24 hours, 2 weeks, 1 month is all of a sudden becoming longer.
We've really got to highlight on High Precision. This is known as Foxconn to many of you, the big iPhone maker on a global basis.
Tom is lifting his phone.
Cut their outlook based on all of this today, now projecting sales to increase 1 to 3% versus 3 to 5% previously. That's got to matter, hasn't it? The fact that some of these big companies are starting to wave the flag and say there will be very real supply chain disruptions.
There is a question, though, is that just temporary, right? Will it just be more buying later on, right? And this is sort of what some people are saying, including Janet Yellen, actually, coming out.
Is it destroyed consumption or delayed consumption?
Yeah, no, this is a key question. Right now, delayed consumption. That seems to be the read in markets.
I guess let's lose the sports. Let's stay with the president in the State of the Union as well. He put out the economic litany last night. The fact is, a year ago, the Dow was 25,200. Now we're at 29,000. Do we extrapolate that out for a Trumpian election year?
Look, no idea. But the one thing I think we can conclude in the last couple of days, we're all trying to work out who the winner from Iowa is. And Lisa has quite rightly said in the last 24 hours, perhaps the loser is Joe Biden. But the winner for me, it's got to be the President of the United States. In the last 24 hours...
Look at his rate. He's up to 49%.
Look at what's about to happen with the impeachment trial later on today. Look at what happened in Iowa. No one really comes out of that whole situation on the Democrat side as a winner. And the President of the United States is standing there tall. Fast forward to the election in November.
Lisa, can you see John? We could take John up to New Hampshire.
I'd love to go
drive him over to Freeport. He could go to LL Bean.
Oh, yeah.
Would that be the John Farrow at LL Bean?
The Iron Skillet road stop.
Yeah,
I think it'd be great.
I would love that.
Honestly, I think that this is a really important moment. I think that also a big takeaway from the Iowa election really is the glitched polling and sort of the Democrats, the 2 month push to get this technology out that then failed.
I'm completing my tour of the East Coast. All I've got left is Vermont, New Hampshire and Maine.
You've never been?
So I go to Vermont in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to tick that one off.
Are you skiing?
But I've done all the New Jersey, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. I've just got a couple in the Northeast still to finish.
I can see you on JP.
I'm a good skier.
JP 60-mile-an-hour wind.
Broke my sternum in the Alps once.
This is Bloomberg.
You're just going to dance over that.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that so in 10 years we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water? NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Send message to Elise. Salut, sorry, I'm running late. Just in the car now. Send. I forgot the cake. Send. Actually, great news. SatNav has found a new route. See you in 10.
Message on the move in the Citroen C1 and stay connected. Experience Citroen C1, available from £149 per month with initial rental of £149. Citroen. Please drive responsibly. Citroen UK Limited is a credit broker, not a lender. Personal lease. You will not own the vehicle. Offer on field VTI 72.5 speed manual, 6,000 miles per annum. Guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility criteria and return conditions apply. PSA Finance UK Limited.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance. For our audience worldwide, we're live on Bloomberg Radio. Equity futures advance 0.7%. Here's your Wednesday morning price action. We're up 23 points on the S&P 500. In the bond market, treasuries are lower, yields grinding higher by 3 basis points to 163 on 10s, on 2s, up 2 basis points to 143. In the other asset classes, foreign exchange shaping up as follows for euro dollar, just slightly negative for the euro, the dollar advancing here, the euro coming in 0.2%, the Swissy just a little bit weaker as well, Tom.
It's not 2020 if Lisa doesn't give us a London Metals quote right now. I mean, it's got to be part of it. I want Chicago copper.
You're seeing a rebound pretty broadly in all metals today, in particular copper, really kind of bouncing back. So yeah,
I wish I could have taken you both to the old LME. It was so cool.
I would have loved to see it.
It was so cool.
Closest I ever got was a bar at the Dorchester. It was mining.
LME Week. LME Week was fantastic back in the day.
I'm with this girl from Indiana, and she goes, "We got to go to LME Week, and we can't go." And so I go, "Well, where do we go?" And she said, "You go to the bar at the Dorchester because they're all there. They're not at LME Week." She was right.
You go from hotel to hotel.
Yeah, every CEO was there.
So LME Week is when they all get together and discuss copper prices, right? Okay. And each broker will have a particular party at a particular hotel.
Exactly.
And you go from party to party to party to party. As I understand, though, in the last couple of years, they've had to change this a little bit. I think maybe the partying was a little bit too aggressive. It takes a certain kind of person to work on the old LME floor. It's pretty aggressive.
I will just say this. Copper prices having the best day at one point since September today.
Okay, looking really good. Yeah, looking really good.
We killed that day
compared to the rout of the last couple of weeks.
Thanks, Tom.
John Hudak with us, and this is important. There's a lot of punditry on politics and that, but Hudak is with Brookings. He's with their governance study group, and he takes very seriously the processes of all this punditry and politics. He joins us now. John, we knew we were going to have you. That was before the Iowa blow up. I mean, talk about a failed process. John Farrell mentioned it earlier. Is modern technology in voting, is it officially dead?
Well, I don't think it's officially dead. There's a lot of contractors out there who are looking to get party money, so I wouldn't declare it dead yet. But I think this is a lesson that a lot of Americans look at, and they say, if our systems can get hacked by Russia, if our systems can fail, I think they look back to a paper ballot system or the old metal voting booths with the curtain and see that as the good old days.
I mean, John, I don't know what they do in England. Here, the coolest thing is you'd go voting day and your father or mother would pick you up and you could hit the little tabby things in the metal booth and the curtain closed. And you could. Did they have it in
When
England?
I used to vote in the UK, I'd just go and sign a piece of paper, just a little tick.
With a quill?
Next to the name.
How did you do it, Lisa? Did you have a machine,
I think
Lisa?
you've got the wrong person here. I think it's Tom that used to turn up with a quill, not me.
You guys are really wound up today.
I will say there were little like levers that you pulled, and then that big thing that you kind of pulled down.
Look,
and you know what?
John,
they still have that now.
We have a guest. John, John Hudak, are we going back to that?
We're probably not going back to that, but I think the nostalgia around that and the security that people felt around that is going to make them seriously question these new technological advances that people are promising will be flawless and secure. And I think it's going to be a serious conversation within the party about what the future holds and what kind of backup systems in particular we'll have to avoid chaos.
John, is it the end of the caucus?
I would hope it's the end of the Iowa caucuses. I mean, these are outdated. They force a system in place where not everyone can participate. To see them on TV or to see them in person, they're foolish looking. And I think the party needs to recognize that this is not the direction of American politics right now, and it certainly shouldn't be its future.
Been a lot of criticism of the party in the last couple of days, for that matter, the last few months, about how they order the states and who goes to vote first, whether you should do primaries and have no caucuses anymore. John, is there going to be a serious rethink at the very top of the party about how to achieve the best outcome, come up with the best candidate on a national level, and stop playing around in New Hampshire and Iowa?
It's not just the past few months that criticism has been happening, and it's happened for both parties. I think if you asked me 5 or 6 years ago if that serious conversation was going to happen, I would say no. But what we saw after 2016 is the Democratic Party responding by saying, we need to make some reforms. And there were some serious reforms that were made at the state level and at the national level about how to select a president. And I think after this election, you're going to see that same conversation broadened to be more encompassing about more issues.
John, there's also a question about the narrative emerging from the Iowa caucus. First of all, it's one of dysfunction. But second of all, it's the lack of a response to President Trump, who has basically going to herald the economy in his reelection campaign, which we saw last night, the State of the Union address. What should Democrats do in order to counter that? Or how important is it for them to get that narrative together?
It's critically important for them to get that narrative together. What we have is a president who has a lot of economic data to brag about, and that is a president's prerogative. If the economy is doing well, talk about it. And, part of the reason Republicans did so poorly in 2018 was that the president talked about immigration and not a booming economy. But the economic recovery and the continued economic success has not touched everyone equally. And there are a lot of people who are struggling out there, and that's the message for Democrats, and they haven't crafted it properly yet.
John, let's take the punditry and bring it over to your serious political science. Mr. Carville, who I adore, I've worked with him a number of times. James Carville of Louisiana says, I'm scared to death for the Democratic Party. That's a moderate voice. Is anyone listening to the Carvilles of the Democratic Party?
Well, I will say there are a lot of moderate voices who are saying that, who are scared to death of progressives, who are scared to death of what that might mean for the future of the party. I'm not ready to pronounce the Democratic Party dead, but what I do think is that there are these moments in a party's history in which they face real challenges or real question marks, and we don't know what the future of the Democratic Party will hold. It could be that a progressive is nominated and that progressive wins, and then we reset everything and say progressive politics is the wave of the future. Or that progressive loses to Donald Trump and we say progressivism is dead, long live centrism. Depending on the outcome of this election will determine quite a bit about what the future of both the Democratic and Republican Party will be.
But John, we've seen the outcome of things like this again and again and again. This comes back to a question that I've seen being asked in the United Kingdom constantly, a question of the left. Does it just have to come down to a purity test? Is it just about maintaining, holding on to the moral high ground? Is that the hill you want to die on? If you really want to make change, you've got to govern. And to govern, you've got to win. And John, from what I see right now, it's not a party that's putting themselves in a position to really make the massive effort needed to win.
I think you're absolutely right about that. The purity tests that exist are ones that alienate voters and purposefully alienate voters. And I think you're 100% right. In order to govern, you have to win. But also, in order to govern, you have to govern. And what we have right now are candidates in this race, both, some centrists and certainly some on the left, who are putting plans out there that will never pass the United States Congress. And what worries me as someone who studies governance is the conversation is never extended to say, this is the ideal, but here's the path we're going to go through to get there. Elizabeth Warren has tried this a little bit to say, if we can't have the perfect, here's our alternative.
John.
And she's been slammed for this.
John, it raises a really important point and exactly where I wanted to go, which is what proposals have you heard either out of President Trump or the Democrats that you think are feasible, doable, that markets should be taking more into account?
I think for Elizabeth Warren and for some of the other centrist candidates, they've talked about how difficult healthcare is in the United States and how they need to work across the aisle, that they're not going to get the Republican Senate to sign on to Medicare for all. And that's something that is realistic. It's something that, markets don't have to think about Medicare for all, because Medicare for all is not going to happen after the 2020 election, no matter who's president. But there's a lot of variation in what those alternatives are.
John Hudak, thank you so much with Brookings. Right now, the Bloomberg NJIT STEM report with futures up 26. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM report brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, a top 100 national university, and the latest U.S. News and World Report college rankings. Learn more at news.njit.edu. Here's Bob Moon.
Tom, Jonathan, Lisa, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. Back in 2010, Washington, D.C. opened its proposed online voting system to public scrutiny to see if it was safe to use in elections. Within 36 hours, hackers from the University of Michigan broke into the network and changed every single vote cast in a pilot election. Yet officials had no idea, even after the hackers modified the thank you page that appeared at the end of the test vote to play the University of Michigan fight song. Washington elections officials ultimately scrapped the program. Fast forward a decade to Monday's glitch in the reporting of the Iowa caucus results.
The bottom line is that we hit a stumbling block.
State Democratic Party Chairman Troy Price blamed a mobile application designed to speed the process.
This was a coding error in one of the pieces on the back end, but the raw data, the data that has come in, is secure.
And how could he verify that? Plain old paper saved the day.
We also have a paper trail and documentation to help verify the results.
The original plan had called for the use of the app for tabulation and some voting, too. One of the masterminds of that 2010 voting test hack says that could have turned this embarrassment into a caucus catastrophe. American elections officials remain hopeful the internet can make voting more accessible and the reporting of results more efficient. But cybersecurity experts point to case after case in which connecting voting systems to the internet and over-reliance on technology creates more problems than it solves. Despite those concerns, 32 states will offer some semblance of mobile voting in 2020. For more on this, check out the full story on the Bloomberg Terminal. That's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM report. Tom, Jonathan, Lisa.
Bob Moon, thank you very much, sir. It's time now to get you the headlines worldwide. We can cross over to Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Tom. President Trump delivered his third State of the Union address last night, looking ahead to his future and a potential second term. President Trump says in the 3 years he's been in office, the U.S. has shattered what he calls the mentality of American decline.
We're moving forward at a pace that was unimaginable just a short time ago, and we are never, ever going back.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer giving the Democratic response says President Trump's Twitter tirades aren't helpful, saying bullying people doesn't fix bridges, it burns them. The Senate delivers its verdict today in President Trump's impeachment trial. They will likely vote to acquit. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor yesterday said Democrats knew the impeachment effort would never pass the Senate.
Impeachment is not some magical constitutional trump card that melts away the separations between the branches of government. The framers did not leave the House a secret constitutional steamroller that everyone somehow overlooked.
The vote will take place this afternoon. A cruise ship outside the port city of Yokohama has been ordered by Japanese health officials to quarantine more than 3,700 passengers and crew after confirming that 10 cases of the potentially deadly coronavirus were discovered. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, John.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. That was the news. Let's get you some price action this Wednesday morning, shall we? Good morning to you all worldwide. Equity futures advance 0.8% on the S&P 500, up around about 25 points. The advance continues. What a rally we've built up over the last couple of days. Just a little bit more confidence and maybe a huge slice of fear of missing out at the moment.
I bought Tesla at 968.
Congratulations.
With your triple leverage cash fund?
Yeah, first 100 shares.
Classic, Tom. Hey, buys tops, sells bottoms, all the time.
Recipe to make money.
From New York, this is Bloomberg.
With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report, I'm Michael Barr. FanDuel picked Scientific Games to provide the technology for its sports wagering and online casino businesses in the U.S. as legalized betting expands across the country. According to a person familiar with the terms, the company will provide the betting platform in current states where FanDuel takes wagers and in new ones that come online. The company already provides similar services to FanDuel's parent, Flutter Entertainment, in Europe. Dick's Sporting Goods is hoping to win over more female customers. The largest U.S. sporting goods chain unveiled a wide-ranging set of efforts to support women's sports.
They include a $5 million grant to the U.S. Soccer Foundation, a sponsorship of U.S. softball as it rejoins the Olympics, and retail changes at stores around the country to expand its selection of women's and girls' products. With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report, I'm Michael Barr.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter.
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
it's time to search at On the Market.
There are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla.
On the Market.
See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are rallying globally and bonds slipping amid hopes for a breakthrough in fighting the coronavirus. Crude oil is jumping. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 24 points this morning. Dow futures up 222. NASDAQ futures up 84. The DAX in Germany's up 1.2%. 10-year Treasury down 9/32, yield 1.63%. And the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil up 2.4%, up $1.19 at $50.80 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.1%, up $2.10 at $15.57.60 an ounce. The euro 1.1022 against the dollar. British pound 1.3044, and the yen is at 109.67. Merck plans to spin off its women's health business into a new $6.5 billion publicly traded company as the drug maker hones its focus on cancer treatments and other innovative medications. Shares are lower this morning, down 1.25%. GlaxoSmithKline expects its profit to decline this year as the company pursues new blockbuster medicines. And mattress retailer Casper Sleep cut the price range for its initial public offering, shrinking its potential market value to well below the $1.1 billion valuation it hit in a private funding round less than a year ago. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that this morning. Futures up 25. This is a joy. It's a joy for two reasons. Brian Weiser, out in the trenches with Pivotal Research years ago, was with Group M, where he's in charge of the known world of research and thinking about media and all that. And Brian, I want to start off with a massive victory lap, because Lonely You years ago was saying TV and sports won't go away. And the NFL just had a bang-up season, and yet everybody's still calling for the death of traditional TV. What gives? I mean, give us an update on the Weiser call on traditional TV.
Sure. Well, it's a melting iceberg. It's massive. It's gradually got some problems. It's the temperature's getting warmer. Occasionally, there's a big chunk that's calving off and crashing into the proverbial marketing ocean.
Yeah.
But it's still massive, and I think that this speaks to the big issue that marketers have to deal with. That most of what's out there can work, certainly with a creative message. But it's changing, and if you don't adapt, and you can take your climate change analogy as appropriate, bad things will happen. So everyone is trying to find it.
You're not doing buy, hold, sell anymore. Craig Moffett and MoffettNathanson they have Comcast, which you're buying, they claim, and you're getting NBC Universal for free. Are the valuations out there that bad from the Group M view?
Well, obviously we're not focusing on the valuations of the individual business units, but I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of challenges with the traditional ad-supported businesses, and I think that, take Disney's results no different. There was pretty significant erosion in ad revenue on both the Disney media networks and ESPN, as well as broadcast, and it was offset almost completely by growth in Hulu. Right, and so if you think about where the ad money is going, it is just shifting. And Hulu is TV. It's just an evolution of what TV is.
Well, Brian, let's talk about Hulu, shall we? We had Michael Nathanson of MoffettNathanson on the program this week, and we talked about the pricing issue with a service like Hulu. Are we reaching the inflection point where we start to get too pricey, and a consumer sits there and thinks, "Why am I cutting the cord again? What's this about?"
Yeah, well, it does seem to be pretty clear that cord cutting is meaningfully accelerating at this point in time. And that is speaking to why, again, if you're looking at it through the lens of the total business unit that an NBC has, let alone that a Disney Media Network has, the affiliate fee revenues that they're depending on are going to erode pretty quickly. By erode, I mean meaningful sub-reductions. And the advertising budgets are not going to grow by much.
Brian, what we're going to do, we got a tough connection. We're going to get you on again soon as well with a better connection. Mr. Weezer with Group M, they're always riveting on the media. Instead, we bring in media analyst Lisa Abramowitz. What are they watching at the Abramowitz house? I know you don't let the kids watch 10 minutes a day, but we're all living. John's living this. He's just plugged into Premier Soccer. I went over once. Yeah. He's got this view. You can see planes landing at JFK's up on the East River. It's just stunning.
Don't stop.
And John's watching 3 soccer games at once. He's got the whole soccer package thing going like he's in Hong Kong or Kuala Lumpur or that. Yeah. What are you watching at the Abramowitz house?
We have Netflix. We have Prime.
Do you have Disney Plus?
We don't have Disney Plus yet. But I will say this. I do think it's interesting. Disney Plus coming out, the subscribers beating estimates by a lot. People
in the length of viewing.
Yeah, and the length of viewing, they actually had a smaller loss having to do with that division than people had expected. The shares up 0.5 percentage point ahead of the open versus Netflix up more than 1 percentage point. So I think this is really interesting. People thought that Disney Plus would be a Netflix killer. Right now, we're not seeing it in the price action ahead of the market. Netflix shares up 14% year to date. Disney basically flat.
Hulu, no ads and live TV, $60.99 a month.
Oh, I agree.
You've got to get an internet connection on top of that. It's ridiculous.
Brian's got the math here where they're beginning to show us more transparency of data. And I wonder if we get like YouTube revenues and all that at Google, if we get what Paul Sweeney talks about, which is just simply more data on who's watching what, that all of a sudden the streaming model works because it's a cajillion views.
Yeah, but there's a question of how much people want to watch ads, right? How much they want to be able to pass them, how much they're used to that with TiVoing,
what does Hulu
everything.
Do? I don't know Hulu. Do they have ads?
No, not if you pay for it. You can pay for it without ads, or you can have it with ads and pay less. That's basically how it works, Tom.
How many streaming services do you have, John?
On the TV right now, Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, which comes with the Prime package.
You just got it all.
ESPN Plus as well, because I like to watch the Italian football on the weekend too.
There we go.
Do you want an on-air confession? I allowed my Netflix subscription to expire.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
I
after
did
Stranger
too. I
Things.
did too.
After Stranger Things.
I did too.
A lot of people do that, then they come back to the service again.
I mean, when Stranger Things, when the next season comes out, I think that we're going to be forced to go back into it.
Afterthought is scarred for life, she says, because we don't have Netflix.
Oh yeah, how do you deal with that?
I got a Zenith black and white with the ears.
So I'll be honest with you,
sticking out.
For me, it's about the look and feel of the living room. I just don't like the look of the cable box. So for me, it's not just a cost thing. I just really like minimising the amount of cables.
You must not have children.
You've seen the living room.
It's a whole zone of its
You've
own.
seen the living room. It should just be a nice TV with a sound bar. Just really clean with the wires tucked behind. The cable box is a really ugly thing.
What about a Lego box?
A Lego box?
Or a box
No,
Monopoly?
We're a long, long way away from a Lego box, I hope.
Where do you put the slime equipment?
Yeah, don't have to deal with that at mine.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say. You're still doing slime at yours?
No, we've graduated to makeup. We've got makeup. From the living room, we've got makeup and Glossier all the way back
Are you in the line at
to the
Glossier?
East Wing.
Are you in the line at Glossier downtown on the
we're not. It's so long, frankly, folks. Glossier, for those that don't know, is a small makeup startup with lines 2 blocks long.
Doing really well. It's ridiculous.
They are. Brian Weezer, thank you so much. We'll get him back on. He's just brilliant. Some really, again, interesting data. Of course, YouTube out with that big revenue number for Google. Stay with us as futures up 23. Lisa Bremwich, John Farrow, Tom Keene. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
What do you do to be an everyday superhero, like Dan?
So my baby boy Ben and me just wanted to share what we do to look after the environment. We put the wet wipes we use in the bin instead of down the loo. It would be pretty nasty if that lot ended up blocking our pipes.
Wet wipes and nappies block thousands of pipes every year. Save our sewers, rivers and seas by putting them in the bin, where they belong. Visit thameswater.co.uk/bin it. Together, we can care for the environment.
Do you do the same thing every weekend? You know, meet up with the same friends for brunch, browse around the same shops, eat the same Saturday night takeaway. Mine's a lamb balti with mushroom pilau rice. Snuggle up next to the same person and watch the same brain-numbing reality TV. Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
We always talk about the losers in a trade war.
You benefit if you're just further away from China.
So that you can too.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The good news is the economy is strong. The bad news is the economy is strong.
Financial crises take a really long time to recover from.
Finance.
The strong job market's pulling people back in.
You can't have for very long, monetary union without a fiscal union.
Investment.
What we preach is extreme diversification.
It's hard to have sustained productivity without capital investment.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow, Tom Keene, Lisa Abramowitz. We welcome all of you worldwide. Futures up again. We've made back 90% plus of what we've seen off that most difficult of virus. The news from our Stephen Engel in Hong Kong really, really harsh. And what we're seeing today is actually a real lengthening of the supply distortions out of China. Nevertheless, market up big, yields up as well. Earnings out. And, this goes, John Farrow, to Steve Eisman earlier saying he is long Maribara and General Motors.
Well, the outlook's not as good as some people were hoping it to be. The year ahead, the adjusted EPS 575 to 625, the estimate 624, so just below the top end of the range there with the estimate. But a big range as well, Lisa, and I just wonder if that's the story for a lot of these companies as they look out to 2020. Just what does the year ahead really look like?
Well, interesting to see the shares actually up nearly 1% ahead of the open, bouncing around. But the fourth quarter EPS came in, the adjusted EPS came in at 5 cents. The estimate was break even, so that beat. But everything else, revenue came in under, and so you also saw a low-end adjusted EPS expectation for the year ahead.
It's such a different business than the modern technology analog. The earnings before interest taxes, EBIT margin, 6 cents on the dollar. But that's another world from what we're looking at with some of these names we look at.
There is an argument, though, of people like Tesla that GM could be a cheaper option on that same bet. The idea that they're actually investing substantially in the same sorts of technologies, but they have the supply chains to actually make it happen. I mean, this is sort of one argument.
None of these guys can model the year ahead at all with what is going on in China.
Okay,
come on.
So GM, it's
absolutely ridiculous to sit here and talk about the year ahead for these automakers.
Should GM buy Tesla? I mean, they got the Volt, the Bolt. They're doing John Tucker's got his order in on the electric Hummer. They're doing electric.
GM has a market cap of $49 billion. Do you think they can afford Tesla right now?
They could. They can do bank loans. JP Morgan will and give them money.
Leverage buyout.
I don't know.
GM shares bouncing around ahead of the open, but I do think it's interesting to think about how they're going to build on this sort of electric vehicle dream, because it's not adoption yet.
Bloomberg talking to the chief financial officer of General Motors here. I believe we do that in the next hour. That will be sport as well. Dollar, David Bloom, HSBC, dollar stability, dollar strength as well.
Yeah.
Interesting debate, right?
Look, I think at times like the ones we're in right now, I think you need a serious amount of humility just to accept what you do not know. And there is so much right now in the world's second largest economy that we do not know, which is what I find it remarkable. What are you doing?
It's a surveillance mic arm. I'm just...
He's stretching.
Excuse me. It's stretching.
Displaying some humility.
Aerobics.
You're working out on the show.
Yeah.
Shakira?
I don't know how much humility we see in this market right now with equities up 0.7% and the market ripping again. I find it absolutely fascinating. What are we rallying on the last couple of days?
Eisman said it, and I think a lot of people agree with him. The central bank's massive accommodation.
It's insane. Jane Foley joining us now, Rubber Bank Head of FX Strategy. Jane, your thoughts on the price action at the moment?
I think you're exactly right, and this is something which the Reserve Bank of Australia Governor Lowe was again talking about overnight. Stock market valuations have a link with monetary policy, and really the policy has got to go everywhere. And Bernanke's been talking for years about the savings glut that's been added to, of course, by the growth in emerging markets, economies such as India as well as China, really growing at very fast pace over the last decade or so. That money needs a home, and that money, of course, is being perhaps chased away from bonds because of the limited yield available and into riskier assets, and consequently stock markets just have this ability to go up despite some of the more grim news that is out there.
Jane, this has been one argument for why the dollar should actually weaken this year, because investors take their money and put it into riskier countries, riskier currencies. We are not seeing that. The dollar is actually at its strongest of the year versus its peers. Why?
Well, I think against the G10 peers, the dollar remains quite a good bet. So, for instance, we had a good example of that from January the 21st, when the market was moving away from risk because of the coronavirus, and the dollar was doing really well. Now, of course, if you look at the other safe havens, the yen or the Swiss franc, you've got negative yields. In fact, negative 10-year bonds yields as well. So the dollar looks good as a safe haven, alternative safe haven. But then on the other aspect, if you compare potential growth rates in the US dollar against, say, the Eurozone, the dollar looks good on that front too. So it seems that the dollar can't lose. It's either doing well because some investors, maybe when there's an outflow from EM, choose the dollar over, say, the Swiss franc or the Japanese yen, and then it does well against other G10 on the growth front as well. So I've had a strong dollar call for the last couple of years, and it stood me in good stead, and I still think that it's going to be really quite difficult to see very significant losses for the dollar in the foreseeable future.
Jane, let's get to some currency pairs, shall we? Dollar yen back to almost 110. The highest for the currency pair since January 22nd. What are we doing back at these levels, considering we haven't worked through any of the difficulty really in China? We haven't seen any evidence of real fallout. We haven't seen the data yet that there is this confidence out there where dollar yen has just done a 180, back to where we were just before the worries really started to escalate.
Well, I think really the outlook for dollar yen is exactly the same as the outlook for global stocks. If global stocks are going to go up, so is dollar yen. And again, it seems like the huge amount of cheap money, the availability of really low interest rates, really puts a comfort blanket over all of the bad news. And this has been the case for a number of years, and we've really seen this over the last couple of days. As long as there's cheap money, investors feel a lot more secure than perhaps the fundamentals suggest that they should. That money's got to go somewhere. It goes into risky assets, and therefore dollar yen, it doesn't really feel that the edge, the cold winds that it might have done in different decades and different eras to this sort of news. Now, if this news does get worse, and of course we know that it could, then again we could have another bout of risk aversion, and dollar yen will go lower again. But we know that central banks continue to pump in deep money to soften the blow.
Jane, I look at the foreign exchange market, and I know it's all interest rate differentials, but it's also capital flows. With these global crises, whether it's what we saw in Tehran and Baghdad or this horrific issue in China right now, can you monitor and judge capital flows, or does that process just go on pause until we straighten things out?
Well, you can see the capital flows, but perhaps the flows aren't perhaps as severe as you may have seen to different events in the era before really low interest rates. So, for instance, I think in the last few days we've seen a lot of flow. We had flow. I mean, for instance, if you look at the performers on just the G10 currency pairs, measured perhaps from January the 21st, which is when we first began to see this impact from the China coronavirus in the market, measured from then to perhaps 2 days ago, at the bottom of the table were the currencies that you would expect to be at the bottom of the table. We'd have the commodity currencies, the Aussie, the NOK, etc. And now if we look at that today, it's the other way around. It's upside down as those flows have totally reversed. So we can't see the flows moving, but perhaps what we don't see in this era of huge amounts of cheap liquidity is that impact being bigger and more long-lasting. So I think the impact of central banks it really has taken the edge off, and instead of feeling really cold winds, we're feeling just drafts.
Well, are you suggesting that capital flows are not the reason we see dollar stability and indeed dollar strength, and that capital flows are not part of that discussion?
No, I think they generally are. And to be honest, if, for instance, if we go back just a few days and we saw money flowing out of emerging markets, I think it flows into the US dollar. And there's really good reasons for that. First of all, it's the more positive yields. There are negative yields, of course, in Switzerland and Japan. But also there's this enormous demand for dollars for transactional values. so many commodities, of course, are still valued in US dollars. People need dollars. There's a huge growth of dollar-denominated debt outside of the US too. So there's this big transactional demand for dollars, and that's why I think the dollar serves as a safe haven function for many people. They need dollars, and this demand perhaps is accentuated in times of crisis, but it's always there, and that's why I think relative to 10 years, certainly 20 years ago, there is more stable demand for the dollar, bigger demand for the dollar as on the back of emerging market growth than there was before. And I think the fundamentals have shifted because of this growth of emerging markets, and I think the flows can be seen quite definitely when we do have crises. But I don't think we have the degree of panic as perhaps news that we have right now would have caused if we didn't have such availability of low interest rates and cheap liquidity.
Hey, Jane, always appreciate your views. Jane Foley there, Rabobank Head of FX Strategy on foreign exchange. The dollar index, the DXY, the highest since November 29th, 2019.
I'm actually really looking forward to the next conversation, Francisco Blanche of the commodities complex over at Bank of America, because this really raises a serious question for commodities, oil in particular. If you have a strengthening dollar, what does that do at a time of slowing global growth despite all of the Fed stimulus?
You think he's been a bit busy over the last couple of weeks? Just a bit.
With the LME, with the LME parties.
I don't know if he's been at the LME week parties. I think LME week's in October, isn't it? I think. Maybe it moved. I remember it being in October. But Lisa's right. Looking forward to that conversation. Francisco Blanche, Bank of America, Head of Global Commodities and Derivatives Research, coming up a little bit later in this program.
On oil as well. Right now with the news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Lisa, Tom, John, thank you very much. President Trump delivered his third State of the Union address last night, touting the great accomplishments he's achieved since taking office and calling for 4 more years.
Our agenda is relentlessly pro-worker, pro-family, pro-growth, and most of all, pro-American.
Democratic House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer says it did little to bring the country together.
Let's hope we didn't distract you from the lack of factual accuracy in the speech, the divisiveness of the speech, and the blatant appeal to his base, and very similar to his speeches in his rallies. It was a State of the Union designed to appeal to the base, not to bringing our country together.
Tensions were on display during the address, with Republicans chanting 4 more years and ending with Speaker Pelosi ripping up the president's speech during the final moments. The Iowa Democratic Party has released additional results of its kickoff presidential caucus after a long day of delay, with 71% of the precincts counted. Pete Buttigieg leads with 26%. Bernie Sanders is a close second with 25%. Elizabeth Warren is third with 18%, and Joe Biden is fourth with 15%. The partial results followed 24 hours of chaos as technical issues marred the contest. Another flight of Americans who were trapped in the epicenter of the coronavirus in China arrives back in the U.S. today. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Bloomberg Business of Sports, Michael Barr. It's old news now. I mean, Super Bowl's old news. We got to go to Tampa. Super Bowl 2021. I mean, let's cut to the chase. Forget about the teams. Taylor Swift or Ariana Grande. What do you think, or both?
Both?
Well, we did J-Lo and Shakira.
I can't believe that you didn't bring up Mets and what happened with Steve Cohen bowing out.
This is more important. The Mets. Okay, the Mets.
Come on.
Thank you, Lisa.
With the Wilpons.
Is he going to buy the Knicks? Barry Ritholtz emailed in today and says Steve Cohen, the Knicks. It's a no-brainer.
No, he's not buying the Mets. I guess apparently he wanted 80% of the team, and at the last minute, the Wilpons said, let's change the terms, and it fell through.
$2.6 billion, right? That was what he was offering?
Right.
Record for MLB.
Lisa knows more about baseball than you, Tom. How's it feel?
How's it feel? Got to be Ariana Grande next year. One last time.
You promise? Is this the last time?
No way.
Just see, baby, this is perfection. Hey, girl, I can see your body moving, and it's driving driving me crazy.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Youssef Kamel El-Din on Bloomberg Markets.
Well, I want to get straight out to Cal Rhoda from IG Group. He joins us from our Melbourne studio. If you look at the bond markets, I mean, that's really the purest form of a measure of expected GDP growth. And we are at 6-year lows for some of these metrics. The virus has simply worsened an already shaky outlook. How substantial an adjustment do you think is warranted for global economic growth if this stays?
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
it's time to search at On the Market.
There are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla.
On the Market.
See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At TUI, we're spreading sunshine early by giving away hundreds of thousands of free kids' places. So you can holiday with the little ones for less. Book today and spread the cost with £0 deposit when you pay with direct debit. From splash parks to swimming lessons. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Direct debit on web bookings only. Free kids' places subject to limited availability. 1 free child place per 2 full paying adults. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg. We get it to Vinny Del Giudice with the latest. Vinny, good morning.
Hello, Karen. Very strong data on the labor market. Payroll provider ADP reporting the economy added 291,000 private payroll jobs in January, topping forecast 291,000 private payroll jobs, biggest in 5 years. That's the ADP report. I'm Vinny Del Giudice. Karen, back to you.
All right, Vinny, thank you. And futures are higher. Let's go to the first word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures are maintaining their gains since the last time we spoke. Dow futures now up 258 points. S&P's gained 28, while NASDAQ futures climb by 103. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.65%. Gold is little changed. And Shanghai gained 1.3% overnight, while European markets are also trading higher, led by gains in France and Germany. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, trade balance at 9:45. Market U.S. services PMI, and at 10 o'clock, ISM non-manufacturing index. After the bell last night, Disney Q1 Disney Plus subscribers beat estimates. And regarding earnings this morning, Merck EPS beat and sets plans for a spinoff. In deal news, the Intercontinental Exchange says it's not in talks with eBay. And wrapping things up, Tesla was downgraded over at Canaccord. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
Bill, thank you. To hear live breaking news of your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. 205,000 3-month moving average on ADP. That's a terrible job economy.
Killer number. Just fantastic. Looking rock solid. Initial jobless claims will come out tomorrow. They're really low as well. This is a resilient labour market in the face of a lot of manufacturing stress over the last 12, 18 months.
The estimate was for 157,000, 291,000 in this ADP report.
There's got to be some noise in there somewhere. Why don't you bring in Francisco Blanch, Lisa? I mean, this guy is just like awesome.
Is that a gift for Lisa? That's nice of you.
No, it's just like,
it is a gift for me.
She was
honestly
excited about it, wasn't she?
It's a very exciting time in oil. You're looking right now at oil prices rebounding up 3% after absolutely being clobbered, with a lot of people saying that there was a secular shift in the entire crude market. Francisco Blanch of Bank of America Merrill Lynch, head of global commodities, thank you so much for being with us. I just would love to get your sense right now of where we are, the biggest one-day rally since December. Is this the beginning of some sort of revival of oil prices?
Hi, thanks for having me. Look, I mean, I think a lot of it depends on how China evolves from here. We've laid out three scenarios: a base case, a major China slowdown scenario, and a global contagion scenario for the coronavirus. But the base case, we haven't really changed our numbers. We still look for $62 in average for Brent and $57 for WTI for the year. And like I said, I haven't moved the forecasts. Partly because our economists think that China's slowdown is going to be a one-quarter issue. So as long as that remains the case, this is a good buying opportunity for commodity markets. Obviously, the risk is that the situation in China doesn't stabilize, in which case you may have a major slowdown or worse, a pandemic. In which case, obviously, you would get hit pretty hard in terms of oil market would get hit harder.
Yeah.
But that's really the story here. I mean, demand could really swing by 1 million barrels a day, or about 1% of global demand. So that's the issue here.
A buying opportunity. I'm wondering how the dollar factors into this. Jane Foley of Rabobank just telling us she expects the dollar to continue to strengthen. How much does that pressure commodities, and does that factor into your call at all?
It is a factor, no question. And remember, the dollar actually weakened a little bit against some of the European currencies as rates came down, but now rates are going up, obviously, again, as the U.S. economy, to your point earlier, is really humming. So it's a factor, but I do think that ultimately we were in the early stages of a global recovery a month and a half ago, driven by the U.S.-China trade deal, and also importantly by the massive easing that the Federal Reserve has given us, as well as many central banks. We had 3 cuts last year by the Fed, and we also had a big balance sheet reversal. I think we talked about this in the past. The balance sheet contraction was a massive headwind for the economy. Now with the Fed expanding its balance sheet and cutting rates, we have a huge tailwind, coupled with whatever else other central banks are doing. So that's why risk assets are so excited. And ultimately, this will come down to commodities as well. But we do need China, we do need emerging markets to see strong consumption.
Francisco, as you point out, we've been in the early stages of a recovery. That recovery was not secured, not in Europe, not in Asia for that matter either. If it's really a one-quarter event, what gives you guys the confidence that we come out the other side in this V-shaped recovery when the situation was not secure to begin with?
Well, Well, I mean, I'm not saying it will be. I'm not a virologist, so I can't really make that call. I mean, I've just laid out the three scenarios.
Francisco, just based on the disruptions that you see to supply chains right now, the sudden stop to large chunks of the Chinese economy right now, I agree with you. We shouldn't get into the medical issues. We'll leave that to the doctors. But as things stand right now, what gives you that confidence?
Well, look, I mean, one of the big issues that we had in the past 18 months is that inventories around the world came down a lot, and they came down a lot because once you start playing around with tariffs, people slow down their purchases. If you look at where global trade growth was running in 17 and 18, it was running around 5% year on year, following years of growth of 2 or 3%. Then basically last year, global trade shut down completely. We had essentially a contraction because of the large increase in U.S. tariffs, and now this year we just need to see an inventory restocking cycle because consumption is strong, because labor growth is strong, because the service economy is still doing well. So I think we need to bring those goods to the economy. Now, longer term, for sure, to your point, you're going to have these disruptions in supply chains, and this is going to change the capex cycle. So, and we argued that in some of our pieces. We will see a restocking cycle, but not a capex cycle until there is clarity as to where this thing is going.
Francisco Bunch, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Francisco.
Greatly appreciate this morning with Bank of America this morning, not only on oil, but on the commodities as well. And to me, it's a fascinating call. Everybody's, been saying commodity bottom for years, and it just, the index doesn't say that.
Look, the ultimate hedge, as always, is what does the policymaker do, whether it's equities and the Federal Reserve or oil and OPEC. As soon as crude starts to roll over, this belief that OPEC steps in and starts to cut output and supports prices, at some point, the policy shift does not work. I'm not saying we're there yet, but what we've seen over the last couple of years is every time the policymaker steps back in, it takes longer and longer and more to support things again.
Well, that's been largely because of the shale patch and the fact that the the producers there have been ramping up production. There is a question, are we getting toward peak shale? But we're not there yet. It's getting more efficient to produce oil, and the U.S. is still a net exporter. I do think it's going to be an interesting question, though, especially as we continue to see bankruptcies, whether that will allow OPEC Plus to have more control over prices when they do output cuts.
Equity futures, like pretty much everything this morning, up by 0.8% on the S&P 500.
John, they add on off ADP.
Well, I can tell you yields were higher off the back of ADP, that's for sure.
So are futures.
10-year yields up by 5 basis points. 165 is your US 10-year. We started the week at around about 150.
Yeah, I look at the 30-year bond, 2.12%. That's 13 beeps higher in a cup of coffee. Stay with us worldwide. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. And feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
This is a Bloomberg.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At TUI, we're spreading sunshine early by giving away hundreds of thousands of free kids' places. So you can holiday with the little ones for less. Book today and spread the cost with £0 deposit when you pay with direct debit. From splash parks to swimming lessons. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Direct debit on web bookings only. Free kids' places subject to limited availability. One free child place per 2 full paying adults. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance. For our audience worldwide, we're live on Bloomberg Radio. Equities with a lift up by 28 points on the S&P 500, positive 0.8%. A lot of data to chew on. A really big upside surprise on the ADP report ahead of payrolls Friday. Some more economic data to get to right now. Let's cross over to Vinny Dow Judice. Hey, Vinny.
Hello, Jonathan. Yes, the trade balance in goods and services December widened to $48.9 billion. However, for all of 2019, it narrowed from the widest in a decade. That reflects a plunge in shipments from China, oil imports, and gives the White House some evidence that they're delivering on pledges to reduce the trade gap. Earlier, you mentioned it, the ADP private payroll report, 291,000 jobs, biggest gain in 5 years, topping forecasts. Also from the Treasury, it looks like they're going to have another record quarter with nominal debt sales. So the red ink, of course, continues to flow. I'm Vinny Dow Judice, Bloomberg Radio. Let's go back to New York.
A bunch of redheads coming out right now on different data points and that on trade and such. We'll get to that.
20-year bond coming, Tom. 20-year bond.
Yeah.
We'll get the announcement in May of the size of that particular 20-year bond.
Huge debate.
And I think we learned the last couple of weeks as well that just in terms of the average maturity of the Treasury of the US debt is going to extend just a little bit.
To me,
going to creep out a little bit.
I'll be blunt. I think it's hugely cultural. We don't want to be like Europe. Is the summary. That's all there is to it. We don't want to do 50-year paper.
Yeah, that to me is the real story, is that they're actually, this is the exit strategy for not doing 50 or 100-year paper. This is sort of a happy medium that doesn't do all that much, frankly, to the maturity profile, considering where rates are right now.
You don't think 50s come soon?
No.
No? We stick at 20?
Yeah, because have you heard the arguments against it?
Pushback in Washington.
The trading ecosystem around it.
Wall Street hates the idea of it.
Yeah.
I get all of that. But don't you think there'd be some appetite elsewhere?
Huge.
Without a doubt.
Treasuries.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Huge.
But it would change the whole yield curve.
Perpetuity, like the British did. Grandpa Farrell bought the perpetuity bond in 1812.
When he used a quill?
We used a quill, and it worked out.
That's when Tom was buying war bonds back in the day.
Got that, Napoleon. Right now, Lindsay Piegza with us. She writes brilliantly for Stifel, and what I love about her latest work, Dr. Piegza, says moderate growth as expected. Lindsay, congratulations on a middle road here. How have you adjusted your moderate growth view given this morning's data and given the serious Chinese issues of the last 2 weeks?
Well, I think moderate is sort of the new normal for 2020, but we do have to put it in perspective that moderate is not great. the bar of expectations has been lowered so dramatically that it seems the market is celebrating even mediocrity at this point. Keep in mind that 2% is really the bare minimum that we should expect from the economy, assuming 1% gains from population, 1% gains from productivity. And we're also just achieving that bare minimum with bloated government balance sheets and extremely low rates. So my concern is that moderate growth is here, but is it here to stay, or does the economy lose momentum as we move further into 2020?
Lindsay, I'm just not sure how many people are interested in the January data right now. It's just a rush to show me February. Just show me what February looks like for the global economy. Lindsay, how much can we read into the January economic data worldwide?
You're being cruel and unusual to Lindsay because it's February 5th. How are we supposed to look into February on February 5th?
To read through in terms of the coronavirus's impact and the slowdown. That's the big question.
Absolute focus of pretty much everyone, I think. Lindsay, your thoughts?
Right. So the market is looking for some clean data and saying how much of this is just a temporary blip because of this coronavirus and the fear of the spread, as opposed to fundamental weakness. And I do think it's very difficult to parse this out, but what we can see is this declining trend that was well established before the first coronavirus. We saw momentum in the U.S. economy slowing. We saw the consumer, yes, still out in the marketplace spending, but spending at a noticeably slower clip. And so I do expect those trends, once we get clean data, excluding the impact of the coronavirus, we do expect that trend to continue into 2020. And I think we've seen that with some breaking news around Macy's closing stores, slower manufacturing data, producers being very concerned that outside of the coronavirus, again, global growth, global demand is not on extremely steady footing as we look out to February and, more importantly, beyond.
Median estimate year-end from the economists that we track on Wall Street, Lindsay, 1.8% for 2020. That's real GDP for 2020 for the U.S. economy. Lindsay, what are you modelling at the moment? What are you looking for?
Well, I think 1.8 for an annual GDP growth is reasonable. It's continuing with that loss of momentum. I would say a longer-term trend for the domestic economy is closer to 1.5%. The Fed's a little more optimistic at 1.9. Again, what we're seeing is that there is a lack of fundamental growth in the domestic economy. And in fact, what we're doing is increasingly relying on non-traditional supports from the Fed and the federal government.
Are you modeling sub 4% current nominal GDP?
I think that's very reasonable. Absolutely.
But Lindsay, you're great at this. Is this politically acceptable in this nation, Republican or Democrat? Can any politician move forward assuming sub 4% animal spirit?
I think so. I think the expectation of the average market participant, or the average American, has come down so dramatically that 2% real GDP, even 1.5%, let's round up to 2% real GDP, is good enough. Good enough. That's the new metric for the economy. Is it good enough to get by? We're not looking for great. We're not looking for a stellar boomer economy. Now the expectation is it just good enough?
Lindsay, what's the line between stall speed and Goldilocks?
Ooh, that's a very fine line. And my bigger concern when we talk about the economy losing momentum is not that we fall into recession, but as you point out, we go into that stall mode, or what I like to call a non-accelerating economy. And that would be less than 1%. And we're not that far away from that very clear danger zone. Because if we do get to less than 1%, there's going to be an even larger reliance on non-traditional, non-organic metrics to continue to perpetuate growth, meaning we're going to rely more and more on government spending, more and more on lower rates, and it's going to be increasingly difficult, if not impossible, for then organic momentum to get us back into a state of longer-term prosperity. And so what we could see is perpetual growth below 1% for 5, 10, 15 years.
Lindsay, is the Fed going to sit there and accept that?
Exactly. That's right where I wanted to go. What's Fed policy off of your call?
Look, the Fed has been forecasting perpetual 2% GDP, and they double down on their commitment to getting prices back to, not near, but back to 2%. And so I do think that as the data continues to underperform, they have backed themselves into a corner, and they're going to need to take action sooner than later. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect 2 additional 25 basis point moves within the coming months.
Okay, do they have the fiscal space to attach to that? I mean, if you're running $1 trillion deficit, do you goose it out to $1.3, $1.4 trillion to assist in your double rate cut?
Why not? The Fed is not concerned about.
Oh, come on, Lindsay. It's a free lunch. I mean, what's the price of your really important analysis of sub 2% forward? There's got to be a price to it.
There is a price, but it's a longer-term consequence that the Fed is not going to concern themselves with near-term. Their near-term mandate is getting inflation back on track. And so whether that means growing the balance sheet back to 4.5, 5.5, what's $6 trillion among friends? That's how they're going to sell it. They're going to say, look, we need to get the economy back on track. This is how we do it. We can continue to hold these securities. We don't have to mark to market. We can hold these securities to maturity and let the cards lay where they will longer term.
This has been fabulous. We'll have this out on podcast, folks. Dr. Piegza with Stifel, just really, really important there on a view of how you get to a sub 2%. Call Lindsay. Thank you so much this morning. Lisa?
I'm struck by the story just published in the Wall Street Journal about Vanguard launching a private equity fund. This, to me, is such a sign of the times, because this is the sort of classic launch pad of the index fund that's basically virtually free and providing lower and lower fees to all of asset management. And now Vanguard going to the one area where fees really haven't come down, which is private equity. This, to me, is really interesting.
I totally agree. We'll talk to David Rubenstein about this clearly as he talks to us about his wonderful peer-to-peer later today. But, again, it's about scale, where they're trying to look at alternative and private equity business. Arthur Levitt's been talking about this as well. I guess retail's going to own 6-7 year hold private equity.
Well, that's a big question. How can you get retail into private equity, into private debt with this mismatch of liquidity? Or retail investors typically want daily liquidity versus the longer term nature of these assets.
Do they do this, John, in England? Do they have small guy exposure to private equity?
No, not in the same way they do here.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. It's not in sort of mass scale that retail investors have access to private equity, right?
Well, but
that's what Vanguard would like.
That's actually unclear to me. I'm wondering whether this is an effort to move private equity into retail, or whether this is an effort of Vanguard to actually make money at a time when index funds don't make anything for these companies.
Interesting point. We should do this tomorrow. Do a nice segment on it.
No, but it's a serious point. I mean, how many gajillions are going to flood into this thing in the promise of David Rubenstein-like returns?
To be clear, this particular private equity fund that Vanguard is starting will be run by HarborVest Partners, and it will only be offered to endowments, foundations, and other institutions that have appointed Vanguard as a financial advisor. This is not going to be catered. This is not going to be aimed at retail investors, but really largely goes to that point of the financial model of the entire asset management industry.
A lot to discuss. Let's get some news worldwide. Let's cross over to Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Hey, Michael.
Hello, John. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Tom. President Trump delivered his third State of the Union address, touting the great accomplishments he has achieved since taking office. The president called for bipartisan legislation to regulate prescription drug prices and said his administration will always protect Americans' Medicare and Social Security.
To those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American health care.
You could not miss the partisan discord. The president snubbed House Speaker Pelosi's hand for a handshake. Pelosi ripped up her copy of Trump's speech as he ended his address. Senator Lindsey Graham says the election will come down to what the president has been able to achieve.
You can tear up the speech, but you can't tear up the accomplishments, and that's what this race is going to be about in 2020.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer gave the Democratic response, and Congresswoman Veronica Escobar gave the Democratic response in Spanish.
We've got to talk about the type of economy that we have. It is not an economy that works for everyone. It's an economy that's creating two Americas, where the top 1% benefit from things like his tax cuts and his tax giveaways, and where the rest of the country, because of tariffs or because of an economy that doesn't work for everyone, everyone else is left behind.
The Iowa Democratic Party has released additional results of its kickoff presidential caucus after a long delay. The initial results show Pete Buttigieg with a slight lead over Bernie Sanders. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg John.
Does anyone think you're going to unite the country ripping up a speech like that? If you're a wavering Republican thinking of voting Democrat in November, does that help the situation? That plays beautifully to the base. But do you think that helps you win an election later this year?
The president has had a very good 48 hours.
Agreed. I just don't think those kind of actions. I don't think those kind of actions help at all.
But I don't think that there are that many wavering Republicans, just as I don't think there are that many wavering Democrats. What you're seeing is one of the most polarized that the nation has ever been. If you look at that Gallup poll.
Sure, but we've got the Democrats talking about uniting the country, Lisa. How do they unite the country if they're going to continue on like that?
Right now, their goal is to energize the base. And so they might say they want to unite the country.
Base is energized for 3-4 years. They can't stand the president. That's done.
But getting them to vote is another story.
Go win an election. If you want to win an election, you've got to get people from the other side to come over.
Well, there are people in the middle, and the question is just about what we were talking about before. You need to come up with an economic argument against what President Trump has come out with, which is a very strong economy. That's where it's going to be fought. It's not going to be in any sort of drama, like ripping up a script or not shaking a hand.
Full circle just doesn't help, does it? Just doesn't do a thing. Equity futures, they advance up 28 points on the S&P 500. We're up 0.8%. From New York this morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. As the tragedy of the coronavirus unfolds, it has some people worried about the impact on their investments, and the short-term effect on the housing market, according to some, could be positive.
Anytime there is a scary situation, uncertain situation, the money goes into the U.S. Treasury, which lowers the mortgage rates, and lower mortgage rates will undoubtedly boost housing demand from what is already taking place.
But Lawrence Yoon, chief economist at the National Association of Realtors, also says that could change as the virus spreads.
How much or how long this situation will occur? I mean, it will lead to global economic slowdown, and if it somehow tips the U.S. economy into a recession, job-cutting situation, bad news, it may not even compensate for the lower mortgage rates.
Tomorrow we'll take a closer look at the impact on Chinese investment in the U.S. real estate market. And that's your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Connecting decision makers to a network of...
Listen, we know you're not here for ads, but while you're waiting for the music, cybercriminals might be waiting for you to expose your login credentials and payment information over Wi-Fi. Help keep your online activity private with Norton 360. It gives you multiple layers of protection, including secure VPN with bank-grade encryption, device security, password manager, and PC cloud backup. Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day,
You can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are rallying globally, bonds slipping amid hopes for a breakthrough in fighting the coronavirus. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 27 points this morning. Dow futures up 234. NASDAQ futures up 99. The DAX in Germany is up 1.4%. 10-year Treasury down 15/30 seconds, yield 1.65%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.44%. NYMEX crude oil up 2.5%, up $1.25 at $50.87 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.1%, up $2 to $15.5750 an ounce. The euro 1.1009 against the dollar. British pound 1.2999. And the yen is at 109.78. The Vanguard Group is launching a private equity fund. Dow Jones reports the fund will be managed by Boston's Harbor Vest Partners. The U.S. trade deficit narrowed in 2019 from the widest in a decade, reflecting plunges in shipments from China and oil imports. And companies in the U.S. ramped up hiring at the start of the year, taking on the most workers since May 2015 and indicating the labor market remains robust. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom.
Thanks so much. I greatly appreciate that, Karen, this morning with a further lift to the markets. The last hour, a little lift up, as Karen just mentioned. The 165 and the 10-year yield gets my attention. Right now, what I want to do, and this is a use of the Bloomberg, Zero Hedge, about 4:20 every afternoon, comes out with 20, 25, 30 charts from Bloomberg, sort of showing what the day's action is. Every once in a while, under great duress, they quote Luke Kawa of Bloomberg, who's written some incredibly brilliant essay that day, and they fold it into analysis of Bloomberg charts. Luke, there's one chart in there that you bring to our attention. It's absolutely wacko, and that's the stock performance versus the bond yield performance as well. Review the last 90 days, 100 days of this complete dislocation of stocks and bonds.
So it's been really interesting to see kind of the correlations shift in markets. So for a long time, what we had in the back half of last year was a situation in which you really needed bond yields to be rising, aka we're coming out of recession fears, feeling better about the global economy, Fed's done cutting, curve can re-steepen, in order for stocks to rise. That was the key contributor.
Yeah.
What shifted early this year, and it coincided with this massive outperformance of duration proxies like utilities and especially software. You have expensive software names already up more than 20% year to date. That's coincided with, in the first half of January, a starkly positive correlation between bond yields and stocks. Between bonds and stocks. When bonds were rallying, yields down, stocks were also able to rise. And that's just because a lot of that was very concentrated in the kind of behavior of those duration proxies. Since that's reshifted again on its head, now we're in a situation where you kind of have more natural risk-on type days. You need the bond yields up in order to get the stocks up, and that's had a lot to do with, I think, of the just making our way through the coronavirus concerns and having more kind of risk-off on days.
Okay, so making our way from the cool chart of that, what does it mean in terms of how the markets will perform going forward, or just sort of how the dynamics are behind what we've seen so far?
So I think hard to predict. I think the good takeaway from this would be it's not likely all the time that bonds will continue to rally for quote unquote good reasons. So if you're in a situation where you're kind of relying on the traditionally negative correlation being positive between stocks and bonds, that's probably of a more precarious place for the market rally.
Is another way of saying this that the everything rally may be over?
Yeah, that might be one good way to put it. And hey, look at yesterday. It's so this is You want a sense of how much duration is just rules over the investment grade credit market. Yesterday was obviously the best day for stocks of the year, the best day for stocks since, I believe, August. It was the worst day of the year for investment grade credit indexes. So that does kind of tell you all you need to know about what rules the roost in credit. Investment grade credit is so much more levered to treasury yields than it is to spread movements on a daily basis.
Okay, that's really important, folks, of the linkage of indices or two asset classes to each other versus the difference in yield within an asset classes as well. How do you respond to the theme of Bloomberg surveillance this morning, led by Steve Eisman? I'm thrilled that he could join us in Neuberger Berman earlier, which is, look, central banks have established an accommodative stance. They're going to be accommodative until they succeed at reflating. Thus, you have to be in the equity market. I mean, that's the major theme of our conversations today.
Yeah, I think that that very much explains a lot of the price action. If you want to put on the hindsight capital glasses, what helps explain kind of the strength of this rebound that we've had in recent days is, hey, the equity risk premium is still higher year to date. If you take the earnings yield on the S&P 500 less the 10-year real yield, that's gone up since the end of the year somehow throughout all this.
Let's do that again. You take the yield of SPX.
Yes.
And then you take away the 10-year yield?
And then you take away the real 10-year yield.
The inflation-adjusted 10-year yield.
And that rate, so your compensation for investing in stocks over bonds, the risk-reward from that metric, the valuation case for stocks, has improved since the beginning of the year. You will not find many valuation cases for stocks that have improved since the beginning of the year, but that is one of them.
I have no idea what you just said. Write an article about it so I can read it in Zero Hedge this afternoon.
A lot of people have been talking about the Fed model and the idea that the lower rates and the sort of lower neutral, the lower normal is giving a natural boost to stocks that is having people recheck their expectations of valuations and just shift upwards some of the multiples. And the question is whether that changes, especially as the everything rally dies away, right? I mean, are we going to see an era where yields actually can go materially higher with some of the backdrop of the coronavirus, et cetera, fading away?
Well, this kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier. No one really thinks yields can really explode that much higher. Like maybe you get some very bear cases saying 2.5, 2.75, but nobody expects that really material reassessment. But this just goes back to what I was saying. Bonds aren't going to always keep rallying for good reasons. And at some point you have to say, okay, what are these super low negative real rates telling me about terminal growth expectations for a lot of these stocks? And that has to factor into the equation somewhat as well.
Can you come back so we can talk hockey?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to talk about the Red Sox right now?
The Red Sox are killing me. I'm looking at... Are you kidding me? I was Farrell had to call out for a physician this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Surveillance
the Red
physician.
Sox? He covers them very closely.
They traded Mookie?
Yeah, I know.
What'd they get?
They got a very
Price.
good, but no, they gave away Price too.
They gave Price to Jeff Passan. Wait, no, hold on.
this is all of it. They got Alex Verdugo, who's a very, very good outfield prospect.
He was 12 homers or 14 homers.
A +3 WAR in like half a season for LA. But hey, LA's got a lot of spare useful parts, and now they just traded up to a superstar.
Mookie Betts. I'm depressed.
As you should be.
I'm moving to the USSR. This is Bloomberg.
Back in the USSR.
Business. Valentine's Day is coming up, so head to your local Asda in London. Get a pack of 4 extra special Love Heart Cumberland pork sausages, 440 grams for £3.70. Blissful breakfasts at prices you'll love. Don't compromise. Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores subject to availability.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see 3 men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At TUI, we're spreading sunshine early by giving away hundreds of thousands of free kids' places. So you can holiday with the little ones for less. Book today and spread the cost with £0 deposit when you pay with direct debit. From splash parks to swimming lessons. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Direct debit on web bookings only. Free kids' places subject to limited availability. One free child place per 2 full paying adults. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing.
And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown!
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
The voice of Doug Cass there. He is scheduled to join us in this hour. First question, of course, on Amazon and his call there, up, up, up. We'll see what Mr. Cass has to say if we can link up with him in Florida. Futures advance up 25, now up 29. The VIX comes in nicely, 0.47 points, 15.58. Paul Sweeney, that was an extraordinary ADP number. 3 months moving average, 204,000.
Yeah, I mean,
in a 1 or 2% GDP economy. Wow.
Yeah, it's the jobs, the consumer is the story here, Tom. We see continued weakness in manufacturing, although we did have a better reading in the most recent month. Business investment remains sluggish, but jobs strong, consumer strong, and that is the story.
A new America, to say the least. And of course, in currency, dollar stronger again. Yen 109.77. Euro's been weaker in the last 24 hours. 110.13. Yields up. Just the 30 years a benchmark off 2.00. We had for a cup of coffee, I believe, a 199 handle, and we moved 12 solid basis points, 2.12% on a 30-year bond. Just to give you the high yield feel there. We got to go to a guy who's busy. And all of this coming off of what we heard from Steve Eisman this morning. Steve Eisman, long GM. Steve Eisman, not crushed, but, he got out of a painful short in Tesla. So we go to David Wilson and the automakers. David, is Tesla an automaker for you, or is it a technology company?
For me, it's an automaker. That's their main business. I mean, clearly they have other operations, solar installations through the old Solar City. Nonetheless, I mean, it's meant mostly. So what do you start with? And it's down 5%. That's after jumping 49% in the past 2 days. Morgan Stanley wrote that many investors are struggling to find a strong fundamental reason for the stock's jump. And yes, Dave, the firm recommends selling Tesla.
I bought 10 shares yesterday. I was going to buy fractional shares. I got in at 962.
Lucky you.
10 shares. Continue.
Unlucky you is more like it. The most active stock, though, is Ford Motor in early trading, and it's down almost 8%. The automaker expects earnings before interest and taxes to trail analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey by as much as 24% this year. Ford's outlook reflects its spending on new models and self-driving cars. Contrast that with General Motors, which is up 2.5%. Their fourth quarter results showed an unexpected profit, even though revenue fell more than analysts were expecting. Now, they're not saying business is going to be great this year. Their estimate for earnings in 2020 actually, at best matches analysts' average estimate. Nonetheless, GM higher, and it's notable on a day when Ford and Tesla are down. Disney's up 1%. The company's streaming service, Disney Plus, ended the fiscal first quarter with 26.5 million subscribers, more than analysts expected. Earnings and sales beat projections. Then you have Merck down 4.5%. The drug maker's revenue came up short of estimates for the first time in 5 quarters, and earnings barely surpassed projections. Now, Merck disclosed plans for a spinoff of its women's health business and other units. Gilead Sciences down 2%. Chinese researchers have applied for a national patent on an experimental drug developed by Gilead, and the patent is for the treatment of coronavirus. And the application was made by the Wuhan Institute of Virology, yes, based in the Chinese city where the viral outbreak began. So the plot thickens there. Humana's up 2%. The health insurer's fourth quarter earnings and revenue beat estimates as the use of benefits was less than expected. eBay down 2%. Intercontinental Exchange said in a statement that it isn't now in deal talks with the online marketplace. And eBay rose yesterday by 8.8% as Dow Jones reported on the possible takeover of ICE shares.
I have
up
no idea
3.5%.
the industrial logic behind ICE buying eBay.
Well, a few years back, Cantor Fitzgerald bought the Hollywood Stock Exchange. And that was, basically an online marketplace focusing on movies. So, I guess it's the same logic. In terms of earnings, some more movers and shakers, you might say. Snap, the owner of the social media site Snapchat, down 7%. The streaming music service Spotify down 4%. The chip equipment maker KLA down 3%, and the medical device maker Boston Scientific down 1.5%. On the other hand, the cosmetics maker Coty up 10.5%. The luxury goods maker Capri Holdings, it's Michael Kors, Jimmy Choo, and Versace up 5%. And finally, Macy's up 1.5%. The retailer will close 125 stores and cut 2,000 jobs as part of an effort to save $1.5 billion a year. Macy's will also shut down offices in San Francisco and Cincinnati.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Tom, after I watched my Duke Blue Devils win at Boston College last night, I understand there was a speech, otherwise known as the State of the Union, which highlighted once again partisan divide in Washington, to get kind of a post-mortem on what we heard and saw last night. Bloomberg government congressional leadership reporter Emily Wilkins joins us from Washington, D.C. Emily, thanks so much for joining us. What were your key takeaways from President Trump's State of the Union speech last evening?
Sure. So So this sounded a little bit more like a campaign speech than a speech that we're used to hearing at the State of the Union. Usually at the State of the Union, the president will lay out their policy objectives for the upcoming year. But this time it sounded more like Trump was touting his own, what he saw as his own victories in the last year. He had a lot of moments that he created, giving a scholarship to a student, reuniting a military father with his wife and children seemingly by surprise. There's tensions within the chamber as well. You saw Republicans chanting 4 more years, 4 more years. For the most part, you saw Democrats sitting quietly or shaking their heads. It was definitely a very partisan vibe within the room last night.
Well, talk about a partisan vibe. We had the House Speaker Pelosi ripping up the speech. Is that really what happened? And what do you think the repercussions could or should be from that?
Yes, that's absolutely what happened. I mean, the speaker herself said as she was leaving the room and asked about it by reporters, she said, yeah, I ripped it up. She said that there wasn't any truth in it. It was kind of tense between Pelosi and Trump throughout the speech. Initially, Pelosi seemed to extend her hand and Trump seemed to reject her handshake. And then when it came time for Pelosi to announce Trump, usually the Speaker of the House will say that they have the honor to introduce the president. And this time Pelosi left out a couple of those honorific words. But I mean, this is not anything particularly new. So you've seen tensions between Pelosi and Trump since the very beginning of this Congress. You really haven't seen them be able to come together on much. And I think right now, now that we are in an election year, now that we are 9-10 months from November, I think hopes of something actually getting done in D.C. this year are pretty low.
Emily, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your thoughts. Emily Wilkins, Bloomberg Government Congressional Leadership Reporter, giving us her thoughts on the State of the Union address last night, which was quite the spectacle. And I agree with Emily. It was kind of a campaign speech, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think we've seen that before in the third year of administration. I don't think that's a surprise. I think we covered it up, down, and sideways. In the time we've got left here, Paul, I really want to go into the shock of 28 million streaming units for Disney, and what Brian Weiser had buried in his note this morning was the length of time people are watching. I mean, I know we're going to do this, but the length of time was absolutely jaw-dropping. Explain the economic value add of a very cheap subscription for that use of the product.
It's extraordinary here. I mean, I think if you look at the Walt Disney Company, they are changing the way they do business. They are changing their company. I'm not sure we've seen anything really like it. At least I can't recall it, where companies really changing its fundamental business model, and it's pivoting from what had been its source of revenue and cash flow, which is, the big cable companies paying them a fee and then charging advertising and all this stuff. Now they're going right to consumer, cutting out the middleman and saying, we think our product is valuable, our programming is valuable, pay us a monthly subscription. And this was brought about by Netflix, and 27, 28, 29 million subscribers to Hulu Plus is a pretty good start.
We're going to cover this with Geetha Raghunathan here in a bit, but Paul, are they underpricing the product? I mean, if people are watching 6 and 7 hours, basically they're putting it on for the kids, from what I can tell.
Disney really came in with an aggressively low price relative. It's below where Netflix is, and I think they're simply playing the subscriber game, the market share game.
What number do they need?
They need well north of 50 million subscribers. They think they're going to get 90 million subscribers globally. Over the next several years, they're not going to break even on Hulu Plus or on the streaming businesses till fiscal 24. So, this is a very long haul. It's a very expensive, change of business model for the company. And guess what? The stock was up 30% over the last year. So investors are saying, okay, this is the right strategy. We understand it. We know what the costs are going to be, but this is something that we think you have to do. And because of the programming you have, Disney, we think you're ultimately going to be successful.
Let's switch to what you and I have been looking at, and pundits have said this the last 24 hours, and I guess I agree with them. I've never seen something as big as Tesla do a Tesla.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, you think about doubling in the course of, basically, 4 or 5 weeks for a company with $160 billion or so of market cap. I just have never seen it in my 30 years in the equity markets. You're used to seeing small cap biotech stocks or something do that kind of move, but nothing the size of a Tesla. So really extraordinary. I'm not really sure what's going on, quite frankly.
Well, we got Canaccord. I know they did something today, and we'll see a few more firms maybe nudge away from a buy as well. Right now, we buy Michael Barr with our news in New York City. Here's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much, Paul. It is the morning after reaction to President Trump's third State of the Union address. In his speech, President Trump said peace talks have resumed with the Taliban to end the war in Afghanistan.
These are war fighters that we have, the best in the world, and they either want to fight to win or not fight at all. We are working to finally end America's longest war and bring our troops back home.
Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen says the president used the address to largely boast about himself.
Donald Trump came into the House chamber and essentially said that the greatness of America comes not from our values, not from our principles, not from our people, but from Donald Trump, who has come on high and inherited a situation where this country was just going to hell. And thanks to Donald Trump, everything's now going great.
With the Iowa caucus results still not completed, with issues with tallying the app being blamed for that bulk of the problem, the DNC chair is now promising that app will not be used in Nevada or any other caucus states during this primary season. With 71% of the precincts reporting in Iowa, Pete Buttigieg maintains his lead with 26% of the vote. Bernie Sanders is second with 25%. Elizabeth Warren comes in third with 18%. Joe Biden is fourth with 15%. A final vote that will likely acquit the president will be held this afternoon in his impeachment trial in the Senate. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on quick take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Poll.
Michael Barr, thank you so much. Let's get a quick data check here. Green on the screen. We're back to risk on. We had S&P futures up just under 26 points. Dow up 220 points. 29,011 for your Dow Jones Industrial Average. NASDAQ up a little over 1%, 94 points. That's at 94.50 on the NASDAQ. Looking at Treasury yields, the 10-year Treasury down 13.30 seconds, pushing that 10-year yield up to 1.64%, 20 basis points above where the 2-year is trading at 1.44%. We want to take a look at oil. It had been very weak over the last several weeks due to concerns of the coronavirus. Seen a little bit of a bounce back today. West Texas Intermediate crude back above $50.91 an ounce a barrel. This is Bloomberg.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Influential. Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
it's time to search at On the Market.
There are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla.
On the Market.
See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are rallying globally, bonds slipping amid hopes for a breakthrough in fighting the coronavirus. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 27 points. Dow futures up 237. NASDAQ futures up 98. The DAX in Germany's up 1.5%. 10-year Treasury down 12/30 seconds, yield 1.64%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is jumping up 2.6%, up $1.30 to $50.91 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.25% or $3.80 at $15.59.10 an ounce. The euro 1.1009 against the dollar. British pound 1.2993, and the yen is at 109.76. And the Vanguard Group is launching a private equity fund. Dow Jones reports the fund will be managed by Boston's HarborVest Partners. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. The Walt Disney Company reported earnings last night came in better than expected, but all eyes were on the new streaming numbers and the subscribers that Disney is signing up for Hulu and ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. To give us the latest, we welcome our good buddy Geetha Ranganathan. She is the senior media analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. So Geetha, let's go to the streaming business because that's really where investors are focused. What are the subscriber numbers? How do they play out?
Thanks, Paul. Good morning. So very, very solid start for Disney. I mean, this is just basically 3 months, less than 3 months into their launch, and they already have 29 million subscribers for Disney Plus. I mean, it took Netflix almost 6 years to get a similar subscriber number in the U.S. So obviously, the very, very solid, strong beginning to their streaming endeavors.
So, Geetha, I mean, as you mentioned, a really strong start. They've got a lot of partners, Verizon, Apple, kind of helping them with this initial push. What's the plan? What's the expectation? What does a company think the subscriber numbers, how are they going to look over the coming quarters and years?
So they didn't give any updates to their guidance. They're still maintaining the same 60 to 90 million subscribers for the Disney Plus service by fiscal 2024. So which kind of suggested, so their breakout between the domestic and the international has been, a 1/3, 2/3, or 1/3 domestic, and they've already kind of hit their target in terms of the domestic market. But we do have to remember that there could be churn in the future. I mean, as we get more and more competition. One thing that they did point out was that even after, the end of The Mandalorian, which was their big buzzy series that they introduced with the Disney Plus service, momentum has been pretty strong. So they added 2 million subscribers just through January.
I mean, within this is $12, $13, $14 a month, whatever the rate is. John Farrow is apt to say, you get up to $49, $50, $69 a month, whatever the number is. there begins to see tension. Within discussions on the conference call, is there any idea of what we're willing to pay for this stuff? Are we smarter about the nuance between $20, $30, and $50 per month?
I think what really emerged from the call, Tom, was that they're not really going to do a lot in terms of pricing. The bundle, the $12, $13 price point right now for the three services, i.e. the Disney Plus, the ESPN Plus, and the Hulu is actually really working well for them. So not only did we see a huge jump in the Disney Plus numbers, of course, but we also saw the Disney Plus, kind of that whole bundle concept working, because we saw a big bump in ESPN Plus and Hulu, so kind of a rising tide lifting all the boats there. They're not going to do anything with the pricing. At least that's what Bob Iger seemed to suggest. This is really working for them well. And so far, it looks like, with all of this kind of hype about whether, Disney Plus would be a Netflix killer and whether this was really a race between the two, it seems like both services can really coexist, and this isn't a zero-sum game. And it looks like this kind of validates Netflix's point that this is really more a competition between, or a race between streaming and linear television.
I mean, Paul, you're going to ask a smarter question than me, but let me ask you one. Are they giving it away to get these millions of numbers?
Well, Geetha can chime in here, but they certainly came in with very aggressive pricing, Tom, and it's actually cheaper than the Netflix. It reminds me of the old days, cellular telephone business, or even the early days of America Online, when it was all about getting subscribers, all about getting market share, and you'll make money on them in the future. So, Geetha, talking about making money, they said they weren't going to break even till fiscal 24. Is that still the case? And if so, are you surprised that investors are kind of giving them kind of the benefit of the doubt here?
Yeah, I think so. They didn't update any guidance there as well. So they will break even only in fiscal 2024. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I think investors are willing to give them a pass. This is all about building up the subscriber numbers. I think the next big wave is going to come in terms of a growth catalyst for the Disney Plus is going to come with their international launches. I think they made a really, really smart move and kind of surprised investors a little bit yesterday by announcing the India launch, which they're timing perfectly because it's going to coincide with the start of the cricket league, the IPL season in March, and I think that should give them a huge bump. Remember, they have over 300 million active users with Hotstar in India. It's a real prime property that they acquired with Fox.
And Disney, Geetha, one other thing with Disney, coronavirus. I know they've got theme parks in Shanghai and Hong Kong. They've actually closed the parks. How much of a headwind is that going to be? What kind of guidance did the company have last night?
Yeah, so it is going to put some downward pressure on earnings, Paul. I mean, Hong Kong, they've actually been seeing declining attendance, and this was even before the virus, just with the political unrest and the rioting. Mm-hmm. Now they're having this added impact of the virus. So yes, about a $280 million impact in fiscal 2Q on operating income. But again, if you look at it from the context of the company, not really material in terms of overall operating income.
We got to continue to talk to you. Geetha Raghunathan, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Just encyclopedic.
Frozen 2 was big in a quarter, Tom.
All this, did it?
Yeah, they called out Frozen 2.
Did they call it out?
It
actually moved the needle.
It moved the needle, as did the Star Wars thing. So they had almost $1 billion in operating profit. Operating profits. Most studios don't have $1 billion in revenue.
Exactly. Let me throw out this concept, Paul, and tell me where we are right now. Content is king.
I think it's more true than it's ever been. It used to, for a while there, you could say distribution was king. So if you're a satellite company or a cable company, but now with going direct to consumer, it's just who's got the best product. People will pay for it. And now the question, as you raised with Geetha, is how much do we really want to pay in this new streaming a la carte environment?
I mean, $12 a month for 3 networks, even if you don't watch ESPN Plus. They're giving it away.
They're giving it away.
For the price of a low-cost martini. It's like done.
Exactly. Put it in context that we can all relate to. And so for Disney, it's not coming cheap. Again, they're going to lose money on this thing for 4 or 5 years. It's just extraordinary. And yet the stock is up. Investors have really kind of given them a pass. And I think that's probably a testament to management, to Bob Iger,
It's depressing. Every time I talk to her, I feel old. Remember when it was like, ABC, 3 channels.
Exactly. And then Fox came along in 1987.
Up in Boston, Channel 38. They have the Bruins. Wow.
Exactly.
That was a few years ago, folks.
then 500 channels and nothing on, and but it's a whole new world out there, and some of these media companies will adapt, some won't.
Would you tell Doug Cass, Rich, I'm not talking about Mookie Betts. I'm not talking about the Dodgers. Tell Doug we're going to hang up. I'm not talking about the Yankees. At least the Yankees didn't get Mookie Betts. That's good. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Vattel Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Futures are...
Valentine's Day is coming up, so head to your local Asda in London. Get a Cadbury milk tray, 360 grams, was £4, now £3. Gifts they'll adore at prices you'll love. Don't compromise. Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores subject to availability.
Do you almond? They don't almond. They do almond. Don't almond. Do almond. Almonds provide natural protein and nutrients to help fuel your day. Do you almond?
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see 3 men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
I'm Peter Jones. Lifting business performance is critical in today's uncertain times. But how do you keep up with changing regulations and rising demands? How do you break free from manual processes to raise productivity? The answer is technology that elevates performance and comes with industry-leading support. Over 1 million UK businesses, including my investment group, trust Sage to manage their finances, operations and people.
Elevate your business today with our free performance review. Visit sage.com/perform.
Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the opening bell is brought to you by SEI, with an operating platform designed to support all major asset classes, diverse strategies, and investment vehicles. SEI is redefining wealth management. Learn more at SEIC.com/IMS. The S&P 500 up 0.9% or 31 points at 3328. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1% or 280 points to 29,086. And the Nasdaq's up 1.1% or 105 points at 9573. 10-year Treasury down 14 seconds, yield 1.64%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.44%. NYMEX crude oil's up 3 1/3% or $1.68 to $51.29 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.2% or $3.10 at $15.58.60 an ounce. The euro 1.1005 against the dollar. The yen 109.81. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. The interview of the day. On these odd times in the markets, we'll look short-term, we'll look long-term as well. And Paul Sweeney, we can do this with a gentleman, the only one we can speak to, who actually knew fluidly how to use a Bunker-Ramo 2210. Douglas Cass joined some series a few years ago, Glickenhaus at Putnam, other venues, looking at individual security selection. Doug Cass, good morning. Just to get to the perspective of a Bunker-Ramo from a few years ago, this, folks, is pre-Bloomberg, have you ever seen a parabolic move of a company of the substance of Tesla? We've seen them, but have we really ever seen it with something as tangible as Tesla?
Well, Tesla is almost a metaphor for the market. The market cap's $145 billion. It's bigger than Costco. It's twice as big as Cat. It's 3 times the size of GM, 6 times the size of Kellogg. When it is trading over $800, I think on Tuesday, 50 million shares of Tesla traded at an average price of $750. That equates to a nominal value of $35 billion, or 1/3 its market cap. Think about that. I mean, Tesla may be the future, and the company has obviously established first mover advantage in autos and batteries, but the shares are dramatically overpriced. And as you said, its recent ascent radically eclipses previous speculative urges of past cycles.
Paul wants to jump in, but Doug Cass, quickly here. How are you positioned this morning in your trading accounts?
You know, we talk a lot about price targets and whether we're bearish or bullish, and we don't spend enough time generally talking about conviction levels. And this is a period of time in which my conviction level is low. In the last few weeks, we've gotten a taste of a new regime of volatility, not only in Tesla, but in the market as a whole. So all markets are not created equal.
So, Doug, and just on the Tesla, we're down about 10.5% here, below 800. So the volatility around the Tesla shares continues. So, Doug, are you surprised at the resiliency in the equity markets in the face of, I would say, the latest exogenous shock, which is the coronavirus and the impact that might have on global GDP? Are you surprised in the resiliency of the equity markets?
I am not really. I'm certainly not surprised about the volatility, which I've been expecting. And I just think as we look at 2020, I think that the contour of the stock market